Am I the asshole for not letting my sister's kids use my toy room? I, 34 am child-free and have been my entire life. I've always loved hobbies like building Lego sets, collecting action figures, and even some light gaming. Over the years. I've turned one of the rooms in my house into a toy room, which is essentially my personal space filled with collectibles, intricate Lego models, and a few rare items I've spent a lot of time and money acquiring. My sister, 38F, has 3 kids, 9F, 7M, and 5M. She's always known I'm into this stuff and never seemed to care until recently when her family came over for a visit. Her youngest son, 5M, saw the room while I was showing my brother-in-law around the house and immediately got excited. He asked if he could go in and play. I gently told him that the room wasn't for playing, and I'd be happy to set up some toys he could use in the living room instead. This didn't go over well with my sister. She said I was being ridiculous and that I should let the kids be kids and enjoy themselves. I stood firm and explained that many of the items in that room were fragile, expensive, or had sentimental value. Her kids were disappointed, and she accused me of being selfish and not understanding how to be part of a family. She's since brought it up multiple times, saying I'm hoarding toys from actual children and making her feel unwelcome. To be clear, I love my niece and nephews. I've always gotten them gifts for their birthdays and played with them when they visit, but I see my collection as more of a hobby or an art display than something for kids to handle. It's not like I have a house full of toys and I'm refusing to share. It's one dedicated room that I've spent years building up. My parents are split on the issue. My mom thinks I could have compromised by supervising the kids in the room, but my dad sides with me, saying it's my house and my rules. My sister's still upset, and now I'm starting to wonder if I overreacted. So, am I the asshole for not letting my sister's kids play in my toy room? Stories number 2. Am I the asshole here for leaving my Bumble date stranded at a restaurant after she admitted she was going to her guy best friend's place after the date? A couple of months ago, I matched with Anna on Bumble. I thought we vibed really well. She had a really nice and funny demeanor and we had lots of engaging conversations on FaceTime. We set up our first dinner date last week. I proposed a really nice restaurant which was sort of far from where we lived. But I really wanted to treat Anna because I thought she was special. Anna asked if I could pick her up and then after the date drop her off at her best friend's place. I didn't mind at all. Anna said she had movie night with her best friend. I picked Anna up and we went to the restaurant. The date went better than expected. We vibed really well. Anna also had drinks since I was the designated driver. However, right at the end of the date, Anna asked if I would drop her off at Josh's. I was initially confused and then realized Josh was her guy best friend. Anna instantly realized what she said and it sort of became awkward. Anna apologized and I told Anna there was no reason to apologize. I was just curious about who Josh was, so I asked Anna, and Anna said he was her guy best friend. And they occasionally have movie nights. Anna said she wanted to be honest with me because she really liked me and saw a future with me, and she admitted they sometimes make out during these movie nights, but it doesn't go further than that. I appreciated Anna's honesty, but this whole thing felt like a huge gut punch. I was maybe in my feelings, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I told Anna to just ask Josh to pick her up, and I paid for my portion of the dinner and left. Anna looked really sad when I ended the date and left. I felt sort of guilty about it later and called my sister to ask her if what I had done was right. My sister said I shouldn't have left Anna stranded at the restaurant, especially after Anna was really sweet and honest with me. I told my sister how I could be expected to take Anna for a really fancy dinner and then drop off her at her guy best friend's house, where she would then make out with him. I had enough self-respect left not to do that. Was I the AH? Stories number 3. Am I the asshole for refusing to cook gluten-free or take my near-adult son out to eat? My 17-year-old son was diagnosed recently with a wheat allergy. He had been battling gut issues for a few months and we finally found that he can't have wheat. I immediately went into research mode. I read labels, learned all names for wheat, bought hundreds of dollars of food/snacks for him to try. I took him to Whole Foods and organic markets for hundreds more. I bought wheat alternative flours and began cooking gluten-free. He still had digestive issues, so back to DR. Only issue wheat. Come to find out he's spending his paycheck at school on biscuits and gluten-filled snacks. He goes to a friend's house and bam, eats McDonald's and wheat-filled junk. The doc and I warned him that this is only mild moderate, but it can get worse. He actually came home with urticaria and hives last weekend. He ate cake and pizza at a friend. He's not 10, he's 17. I can't be with him everywhere and police every single thing he eats. He knows what wheat is and what to look for. We literally learned together. The school said they won't cut him off even with a DR. Note cause he's old enough to police himself they provide alternatives but he won't eat them he's stubborn tonight. We went out to a gluten-friendly restaurant and I got him a gluten-free meal $26, ours average 15 to 18, I made sure he was good with the section he didn't eat it but instead snuck off others' plates and snuck bread my MIL is an enabler, just a bit won't bother him 10 bites later. He stunk up the car on the way home and tried to deny that he ate West but the guy won't lie he is wanting to stay home due to gut pain but I'm getting peeved cause he's causing it am I an awful mom that if he's going to eat what he wants that I am just over making the effort and spending way extra money when he's not even following the diet. I have been begging, trying and cooking GF for over 9 months and have spent thousands trying to find what even I feel taste pretty good alternative. I don't want to be a uncaring person but I feel like I'm wasting time and money that we don't really have when it makes no difference am I the asshole? Stories number 4. Am I overreacting? Fiancé told me he had a surprise for me and drove me to a house and said it was ours let me believe it and then said it was a prank. We were out looking at Christmas lights tonight when my fiancé said he had a surprise for me he usually isn't great with surprises so I was intrigued we drove a ways and pulled up to this house, mind you it's nighttime it's a gorgeous house, with a sign in the yard he asked, what do you think of this house? I've been dying to move out of my cramped 1-bedroom apartment, so I'd literally move into a medium-sized shack if I had the chance I told him it was very pretty he said, what do you see in the yard? And I told him I saw a for sale sign. And then he told me to look again and pulled back the sign said, under contract. It started to click in my head and I had started to get really excited he let me sit in my excitement for a while before I asked, is this our house? And he started laughing and said, nope, and drove away am I overreacting? I haven't stopped crying that was one of the cruelest things I think I've ever had done to me by someone I love and trust. Stories number 5. Am I the asshole here for showing a dick pic to a random at a bar? I was at a bar with a couple friends and took out my phone to take a picture of them after a few seconds some lady came over all angry and was telling me to delete the picture I was like what no turns out she and some guy were in an argument behind us and she thought I was taking a picture of them the bar was loud so I didn't even realize they were arguing or whatever. She didn't buy it so I showed her the picture and was like look I'll crop it then she's like you took more than one and she wanted to swipe my pictures for proof. Now here's where I think I might be the a-hole I knew there was one picture of me getting ready earlier that night and the next one was a dick pic I was like go ahead swipe she swiped and saw the pic then called me a prevent and walked away. I had a good laugh about it at the time but I'm feeling kinda weird about it today. Stories number 6. Hairstylist has been taking/keeping my hair. I'm weirded out I'm also going to be vague because, obvious reasons. I'm 30 SF and my stylist is 40s. I got my hair cut today at a stylist I've been using for about 9 months now. I think this is my 6th appointment with them I usually do a trim or cut/style today I went from long hair, high lower back, to an A-line bob. Again, since I started seeing this person, I usually get current style maintenance/trim this time was a dramatic length adjustment so they took a picture of the cut length in the floor to add to their social media, then intending to add before/after hours too. That's all totally fine and normal. They go grab a broom, sweep up the hair, and place the dustpan on the counter for a bit again normal. They grab the broom and pan and head to the back of the shop they're gone a few minutes no biggie then they go out to smoke. But, here's where it gets weird. The bathroom is in the back of the shop too I need to go and step into the back I don't really notice anything on the way into the bathroom I go, and start to head back out but I notice my name on a small clear tote on the table it has no lid and it has my hair in it. At first, I didn't really think much of it but I looked closer and see it's not just today's discarded hair, but looks like at least a few of my trim sessions mixed with it looked like potpourri. And a little sand or something and printed pictures of the cut hair with dates the printer is sitting right next to it with today's discarded hair pic in the tray there didn't seem to be any other containers like this when I looked around it was fucking weird, so I took a pic on my phone. I honestly didn't know what to think or do and went back out into the salon. They came back in, and I mentioned that I went to the restroom and they seemed to freak out a little but didn't mention it I didn't really know what to say, so I just let them finish styling my hair, paid and left as a socially anxious introvert. This was my nightmare. I got home and the more I looked at this picture, the more ick I got. I ended up texting them an hour ago, sending the picture, and requesting they remove the weird box of me and asking for an explanation. I said, hey so I saw this and didn't know what to make of it can you help me understand what this is and why you have it? I'm not comfortable with you having this and request you please discard the contents also, even though I loved my cut, I believe it's best if I find a different stylist. They haven't responded. LOL, WTF. Update. It's been about a week, and with the holiday I've all over the place, but I ended up going to law enforcement to make a report last Monday. I'll likely end up going back if this person keeps contacting me like they have been. I'll give a little timeline. Last Saturday, haircut and discovered the weird tub full of my hair, texted stylist about the weird tub and said I'd be finding a new stylist. Hairstylist didn't respond. This is where I left off in the last post. A lot has happened since then. Sunday I woke up to a bunch of texts from the stylist. It woke me up because, even though I have DND on my phone, I have a setting that overrides that if there are repeated contact attempts over 3, in case of emergencies. Here's what I got, copied and pasted. 3:49 a.m. I recommend going to a different stylist. BC of this. It's not a big deal. Small towns and people talk and you may not find anyone that will take you after this, so ID reconsider. I don't like threats. 3:51 a.m. So I have your biological material and it's mine property now. I can do what I want with it. I kept it because I can and it means a lot to me. 3:54 a.m. Why you send the pic? I know what it looks like. It's mine. 4 a.m. You need to respond to me because I think it's a misunderstanding about what this is. It's no big deal and you saying you are switching stylists has me triggered. I do good work. You said so. 4:04 a.m. I also charge a $350 client separation fee, so yeah, you can't just say you're switching stylists with more consequences. And I know you said you already tried a few PPL before me. They not many beauty PPL in the area. 4:11 a.m. Asking for an explanation for a stylist having hair in a salon is crazy. Where else would you find hair at? I didn't do nothing wrong, but I will get rid of it if you are gonna cry about it, but only if you say you won't be switching to anyone else for your hair care. You mean a lot as a client and always tip well and Indo good work, so it doesn't make sense. And you know that, so maybe don't threaten someone who does your hair or hurt there by making accusatory statements. I didn't respond to any of those that morning because it was so insane to me. I need to process things fully before I make a decision on how to deal with it, so I just didn't respond. Sunday afternoon I start getting phone calls. This person called me 14 times that afternoon. About every other call, they left a voicemail. Most of the voicemails just said, call me back or text me back, but 2 of them were unhinged. I'm going to paraphrase, but the gist of the first one was, sounds like they're crying, call me back, I'm getting scared, you won't come back to me for your hair for real, I just like how your hair feels, that's why I kept it, call me. The second unhinged message was left late Sunday night at 11:38 p.m. and it said, I got rid of it except for one lock. I found out I like watching your hair burn more than I liked keeping it. I didn't respond to any of those messages, calls, or texts. The whole thing had me freaked out now. I decided by that time I was taking Monday off work to go to the police. Even if they couldn't do anything, I wanted a filed report of the weirdness. I woke up Monday to an email from the stylist with an invoice of $375 for client breach of contract fee as the chargeable line item. Again, copy and pasting here. The email body was just for being a bitch. It was sent from their business email too, so they're really doing everything they can to ruin themselves. Even if I had a contract with this nuttier, which I don't, the original amount was for $350. They can't even get their extortion fees right. I did email them back stating that we had no contract, and to cease all further communication with me from this point forward. I got ready and started heading to the police station around 9:45 Monday morning. I live in a rural area, so there are portions of my drive to and from our main town that doesn't have cell reception. When I finally got to town, I had 4 voicemails. I knew immediately who they were from. I talked to one of the officers on staff. They took my statement, a copy of the email, asked me to forward all the texts and screenshots of the numbers of calls. They said, at the least, the calls and texts could be considered menacing and harassment, but the voicemail where they mentioned how they like burning my hair was potentially concerning. The officer advised I contact a legal representative in case this person tries to take the bogus invoice to a civil suit court, and they said I'm welcome to change my number, but having the piling evidence if they continue to contact me after I explicitly told them not to in the email would only help me. I reached out to a lawyer Tuesday and left a detailed message regarding the situation. They are apparently out of the office until next Wednesday for the holiday, so we'll see if they have any advice. I've since received many texts and calls from the stylist. They sent a Happy Thanksgiving text on Thursday morning as well. Regardless, they are giving me a lot of evidentiary material to work with, but I'm so unsettled I can't wait to hear from the lawyer this week. Stories number 7. Will we ever see a day when law enforcement puts this much effort into finding the killers of women, especially BIPOC women? With the search supposedly narrowing in on the NYC insurance avenger, it's disheartening to see how much effort is being put into finding him when women in this country are often blamed for their own murders and not much more than a cursory search for the killer is done. I was inspired by a post from Relentless Indigenous Woman which follows. Responses from society: if the CEO was a missing or murdered Indigenous woman, girl, or two-spirit person. As a CEO, shouldn't he have anticipated this? Why didn't he take more precautions? It's too soon to assume the killer had bad intentions. The police know best, just leave it in their hands. We don't need the public involved. If we put too much resources into finding the guilty person, we'll have to do that for everyone. Companies are always dealing with conflict, maybe this was internal. If his job is a CEO, he should have been prepared for something like this. Why didn't anyone close to him protect him better? What was he wearing that made him stand out so much? Do we even know the full story? It's a tragedy, but let's not overreact. If only he had blended in more, this might not have happened. These things happen to everyone, not just CEOs. These responses are inhumane, aren't they? That's because they are. Edit, thank you for the award, kind Redditor. Stories number 8. I, 26F, found deleted texts between my BF, 36M, and another woman. Thoughts. I'm at the airport now. I packed what I could and called my mom in tears. I tried to hold it together as much I could, but he kept asking me what was wrong. I blew up and I brought up the texts that I found and he immediately turned red in the face. He said they were just friends, which didn't help at all. I told him to pull up the texts and I could already see the panic on his face. I grabbed the phone and started scrolling. And I already saw more than enough flirting, good morning texts, compliments, I miss you though. She's also married with kids. He said there was no sexual relations, she's just a friend, and it was never anything more, and they hadn't even seen each other in over 10 years. That did nothing for me. I packed a few bags and took an Uber to the airport. He followed me there and tried to talk to me at the airport. I told him I'm not coming home with him. He stayed with me for an hour trying to convince me to go with him, but I wouldn't. He said he was sorry for everything and left. I'm here for 3 hours until my flight. Thanks everyone for your advice. I'm hurting. Stories number 9. Am I the asshole here for going no contact with my best friend after she humiliated my brother about his sexuality? I, 32F, have been best friends with Claire, 31F, since we were kids. We've been through so much together: school, breakups, family drama, all of it. She's been like a sister to me, and for a long time, I thought nothing could come between us, but now, I'm not so sure. My younger brother, 30M, came out as gay a few years ago. It was a big step for him, but our family has always been really supportive. He's one of the most important people in my life, and I'd do anything to protect him. Claire has always said she was okay with it, but she'd sometimes make these offhand comments that felt off, stuff like, "At least he's not one of those extra gay guys," or, "Being gay is so mainstream now, it's like not even a big deal." I'd push back when she said those things, but she'd laugh it off and say, "You know, I'm just kidding." Last month, I hosted a small dinner party at my place. It was me, Claire, my brother, and a few other friends. Everything was going great. We were laughing, eating, just having a good time. Then Claire dropped the comment. She turned to my brother and said, "You know, it's kinda wild to think about. Your dad probably would have freaked out if he knew you were gay." The room went dead silent. My brother looked completely crushed. For context, my dad passed away shortly after I was born, and my brother never even got to know him. So for Claire to say something like that, it wasn't just a joke, it was cruel. I told Claire to leave immediately. She tried to backpedal, saying, "Oh my God, I didn't mean it like that." But I didn't care. After she left, I spent the rest of the night comforting my brother. He admitted to me that Claire's comments over the years had been bothering him, but he didn't want to make me pick sides. That broke me. The next day, Claire texted me like nothing had happened, but when I didn't respond, she got defensive. She said I was overreacting, and that it was just a joke. Then she accused me of choosing my brother over her, which, yeah, obviously I'm gonna choose him. I blocked her after that. Now, some mutual friends are saying I'm being too harsh and that I should hear her out. They keep saying things like, "She didn't mean it," and "You've been friends forever, don't throw it all away." But honestly, I feel like Claire threw us away when she made that comment. So, am I the asshole for cutting her off? Should I have handled this differently? Or was I right to stand up for my brother? Stories number 10. Am I the asshole for no longer visiting my boyfriend's family after they sold their car? So I, 23F, came from the foster system when I was out. I had no financial resources and had to buy the only vehicle I could to survive. We live in a region where winter is harsh. My vehicle doesn't do well in this weather, and to make matters worse, the heater and defroster have stopped working. My boyfriend of 4 years lives with his parents, and they were selling their van. I asked if I could purchase it, even threw in a little more above asking price. They said sure, so I've worked hard these past 2 weeks to pay in full. Only to arrive the morning we scheduled for the exchange and find they sold it the night before. Pretty much just shrugged off what we discussed. I thought his parents liked me, but needless to say, that's not the case. I've been upset since. Now I don't know what to do. My vehicle won't last another winter. They knew the situation. They didn't care. It's not really selling the car to someone else that sucks, it's the disrespect. Since then I don't go over there. I don't want to. My boyfriend said I'm invited to Christmas, but I told him I'd rather celebrate with my cats. He's getting annoyed. I can tell. I don't want this to impact our relationship. I don't want to be petty. I just know through this event I'm not welcome. Stories number 11. Am I the asshole for telling my stepdad and mom that they shouldn't be surprised at what my little brother said to them when they pulled a prank on him? I, 20F, am an older sister to my little, biological, brother, 17M, who finished high school last year. My little brother and I are really close. He says I'm the best friend he has and he loves me more than anyone. Of course this is not true, he has many friends of his own. My brother has been asking our stepdad/mother if he could get a new car for his grad party since last year, and he said he'd pay 50 to 75% with his own hard-earned money while they paid the rest. They said no. I have a car, but I had been working for one. They helped me pay off for it. So my brother's arguments with our parents got heated. After a while, one time I told my brother that I'd help him pay off expenses for a good car once I got my own. He hugged me and said I didn't need to worry and that he owed me way more than I owed him, but he continued to press our parents all of last year until they gave in and said yes, like they did for me. Note that our stepdad and my brother have a negative relationship for the most part. Our bio mother and stepdad got together soon after our bio dad and mom divorced when we were little. My brother thinks that stepdad and mother were seeing each other before our real parents divorced, and TBH, I think that might be true, not certain, though. Anyway, my stepdad, mother and brother compromised and said they'd get him the car in 2021 so that people don't gawk at him at the graduation party June this year. My brother and stepdad/mother are still on about the car. Now the argument's getting loud and lasting hours until evening. My stepdad was getting into screaming matches with my brother over it, but they reached a final compromise of the car being bought last week. The fated morning comes and my brother wakes up to our stepdad and mom guiding him outside to a car, but not his. Our mother's stepdad used his and my brother's money on a dumb prank, bought a completely different model of car, and said it was for our mother. Our mom and stepdad just laughed and kissed each other. My brother didn't lose it. He didn't even look angry. He just looked dead in our stepdad's eyes and said, and I'm not joking, verbatim, "You might think I'm fucking stupid, you might think whatever, but I'm just better than you, bro. You know that, I know that. And our mom is a fucking idiot for staying with a prick like you, but I'll make you wish you'd never fucking met us. I promise you." You might be laughing now, but you'll be crying later. He then walked off, not even looking back at them as they stared horrified. They asked me what was that about, and I, feeling terrible for my brother, said they had it coming and not to be surprised, so now they grounded both of us. I've had to explain the situation to my friends as I can't see them anymore, but I feel so bad for my baby brother and they back me up on this and ask me to comfort him as much as possible. But our parents are so mad, and they can't see that my brother had his heart crushed. Am I the asshole? Update: am I the asshole for telling my stepdad and mom that they shouldn't be surprised at what my little brother said to them when they pulled a prank on him? In the time away from the post, it kind of blew up. Email my brother and I appreciate everyone tuning in with their insights. I took a break from work today to call my biological dad since I'm over the age of 18, in our state. Custody arrangements aren't as stringent on me and my brother. In a few weeks my biological father legally sees us 40% of the time and my bio mother 60%. I have the legal right to choose if I should stay with my bio mom and her husband and my biological dad, who in my opinion is a much better fit. My brother and I have agreed our biological dad is the only way out of this madness, so we're going to move out. We'll raise the issue in court if need be. We need to get away from this madness. Right after writing the posts and getting comments suggesting legal action, I talked to my brother about it. He's still kind of feeling awkward about it, but he feels certain that's the route he will take so as not to pass any statute of limitations. Since in a few weeks he will be an 18-year-old, I'm certain a few weeks is fairly safe though. LOL, I am not legally smart at all, nor is my brother, but we're getting good at this stuff. He got robbed and he deserves his money back. A few comments mentioned the setting up of a GoFundMe. My brother wants everyone to know that he appreciates the gesture but asks people not to do that to themselves. He is adamant about taking his stepfather to court over this and said that the messages of support were extremely touching. He wants everyone wanting to donate somehow to him to keep their money and use it to better themselves and their families, and all the offers of free cars from working mothers to him broke him. He said people with families deserve their cars more than he does at his age. Lastly, I end this by saying, thank you to everyone for my brother's sake and for my own. We realize what a terrible situation we are in, but we're taking steps to get away. It means a lot. Edit. If it's meaningful to anyone, the car my baby brother wanted was around $18,000. 75% of that purchase, so $13,500, was pooled with the remainder of the money my stepfather had. My father purchased a cheaper car with his own, and my brother's money is $13,500 worth going to court over. Stories number 12. Am I the asshole for not eating a Thanksgiving dish? I suspect it was made last year. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. But I'm so baffled about this situation. I need a non-biased perspective. My husband and I, 30-ish, have a quite large family: his parents, his 2 siblings plus spouses and kids, my divorced parents and their new spouses, plus my siblings and their spouses and kids. Altogether we are well over 20 people, so family gatherings can be overwhelming for the person hosting, and yes, my divorced parents and their new spouses get along fine and there's no drama. Last night we celebrated Thanksgiving, and as a family tradition everyone brings a dish. Usually we communicate with each other so that way everyone is making different types of food. My sister-in-law, wife of my brother, said that she was going to bring her mom's famous sweet potato casserole. I thought it was very nice of her since her mom passed away this year and she was honoring her memory by making her recipe. However, once I saw her dish I truly think she brought last year's leftovers instead of big pan. She brought several small and medium containers of sweet potato casserole. Although it did not smell weird, it was very dry and just didn't look like a regular one. I didn't try it and discreetly told my husband my concerns, who also did not try it. Once Thanksgiving was over, my mother called me saying that my sister-in-law was upset because she noticed I didn't try her dish. I told my mother about my fears and she said that I'm just too picky with food and there's no way a frozen casserole could last a year without having mold. I pointed that the several containers could mean she cut the good parts and left the moldy ones. After an awkward silence, we decided to agree to disagree and hang up. I feel bad for my sister-in-law, but I truly could not bring myself to eat something I am not 100% sure is safe. So am I the asshole? Update. After spending my whole morning reading and answering your comments, I decided to pass by my mother's house and have an in-person talk with her. I read her some of the comments on the original post and she thinks the internet is a strange place. We agreed I can always come and tell her what I think. Truthfully, she has not talked to anyone else in the family about the yam debacle. We decided to call my brother and ask if we can go to his house and have a talk with him and my sister-in-law. He said to brace ourselves and come with an open mind. When we got there, my sister-in-law started crying uncontrollably and my brother took us to the kitchen, which was a mess. Long story short, they were indeed leftovers, just not a year old. I guess sometime before her passing, Sil and her mom had made several family recipes as a bonding experience. The casserole was one of the staple recipes and my sister-in-law had froze several containers of it on Thanksgiving week. She thawed some of it and tried to replicate the taste without luck. I guess the pressure of making it for us got the best of her and she got more and more frustrated. As the date approached on Thursday, she finally gave up and decided to just reheat the ones she had frozen. As to why my Sil noticed that I didn't eat her dish, apparently in prior years I had complimented the casserole as, "This is the best one I've ever tried," so this year she was expecting some comment and was sad when I didn't even try it. I apologized and told her I was really sorry that I hurt her feelings. She apologized for singling me out. We told her to rest, and in the meantime my mother and brother, we cleaned the kitchen, tidied the house, and mom made her a soup, ajiaco. If you know, you know. My mom decided to stay, but I left a bit after everything was done and everyone was calm. As a goodwill gesture, I'm getting my Sil a mini spa day that I think she will enjoy and help her feel better. So that's pretty much it. No big fight, no big dramatic scene. Sorry, not sorry. Thank you all for your opinions. I will be more thoughtful of people's feelings, but I still will not eat something I don't want to just to please someone. No reports that anyone got sick, BTW. Lastly, does my mother think frozen food can get moldy? She claims she said it in the heat of the moment, and because I was annoying her. She knows cooking is not my forte, so she thought I had no good comeback to that. I opened her freezer and there's only meat and ice cream, so, who knows at this point. Stories number 13. Am I the asshole here for refusing to keep giving my colleague lifts home after she started treating me like her personal chauffeur? Am I the asshole for refusing to keep giving my colleague lifts home after she started treating me like her personal chauffeur? I live in England and work as a project manager for a tech company. My job often requires late nights, and so does the job of one of my colleagues, who I'll call Emma, not her real name. We've always gotten along well, and I've been happy to help her out when I can. A couple of months ago, Emma mentioned she was nervous about taking public transport late at night after a particularly scary incident where someone followed her from the bus stop. I felt for her and offered to give her a lift home whenever we finished late, as her flat is only about 15 minutes out of my way. At first, this was fine, she was really grateful, and I was happy knowing she was getting home safe. But over time, things started to feel off. For one, Emma began expecting the lift rather than asking. She'd linger around the office waiting for me instead of heading out, and if I tried to leave without her, she'd make comments like, "Oh, I guess chivalry really is dead." Then she started pushing it further. She'd ask me to make detours to pick up things for her or drop her off at places other than her home. For example, she once asked me to stop at a 24-hour shop so she could grab a few essentials, which turned into a 20-minute wait in the car. Another time, she asked me to drop her at her friend's place instead of her flat, which added an extra 30 minutes to my journey. When I gently told her I couldn't keep doing this because it was adding to my already long days, she got defensive. She said I was being selfish and implied I didn't care about her safety. She even made a snide remark about how she'd find someone who actually cared. I've now stopped offering her lifts altogether. She's been giving me the cold shoulder at work and has even told some of our colleagues that I abandoned her late at night. A few people have said I should have just put up with it for the sake of workplace harmony, but others agree she was taking advantage. I feel bad because I know the world isn't always safe for women, especially late at night, but I also feel like I was being taken for granted. Stories number 14. Cashier at the hardware store weirded out by my husband's attire. There is a small hardware store nearby that my husband and I have been to twice. Both times the cashier was this one boomer-aged older woman. The first time she served us, she said to my husband, "Wow, you sure are dressed up fancy. Where are you going today?" My husband was wearing solid black jeans, a black sweater and a dark gray wool blazer. Basically what we joke as aging preppy goth. He said we were going to visit his mom. She replied with a sour face, "You visit your mom that dressed up?" I laughed and said visiting Mil was worth the extra effort. She just had this weird disapproving look and mumbled something like, okay. Today we went in and again she commented on how my husband sure was dressed up fancy and asked where we had come from. My husband was wearing a gray and black Icelandic sweater and black jeans. I replied that we were just running errands. Her response was about the same as the previous time. A generally displeased face with a comment about how that was weird to her. We keep laughing about how odd and judgmental her reactions to his clothes are. The funny thing is, he was dressed the same way last night at a bar and two older ladies came over specifically to compliment his sweater, asked if I had knitted it, and then asked me if they could pet his sweater, which we both said was okay because it was cute. I really want to know what the hardware store lady's problem is. Sure, we live in a small mountain town and the usual attire here is puffer jackets, knit hats, and hiking pants, but we aren't going out in formal wear. Stories number 15. Am I the asshole here for punching my ex-husband's new girlfriend for hitting my daughter? I 23, have a 6-year-old daughter. I had her at 17 years old with my ex-husband Devin, and I got married at 18 and got divorced at 20 years old. Due to his cheating he doesn't pay a dime to financially support our daughter. I am our daughter's full-time caretaker. My ex-husband only sees our daughter once a month. I beg him to spend more time with her, but I shouldn't have to beg him to be a father. He recently got into a relationship with his new girlfriend Haley. Ever since Haley entered my ex-husband's life, she bashed me. She blamed me for my daughter being autistic. She said my daughter is autistic because I coddle her. I do not coddle my child. I legitimately try my best with the situation I was dealt. My daughter was diagnosed with autism at 4 years of age. We have her in speech therapy and behavioral therapy. She has a therapist she sees twice a week. She also has developmental delays. I try to work with her every day on her speech, behavior, etc. Yesterday my daughter went to go stay the night at her dad's house. Her dad's girlfriend, Haley, was there. She lives there now. My daughter's father called me. He told me to come over and pick up our child because she was upset. I went to go pick her up and I saw she had red marks, welts, and bruises all over her legs. I was pissed and asked what happened. My daughter told me that she spilled water on the floor and on the couch. Haley got mad at her and hit her with a belt. I rushed into the house and I don't know what came over me. I punched Haley in the face and beat the shit out of her. I didn't even realize I did it until I saw her on the floor. Haley wanted to press charges on me, but my ex talked her out of it. I went to the police station with my daughter right after and filed a police report. I showed them the bruises, welts, and marks. I pressed charges for child abuse and I reported my husband to CPS for child neglect and abuse. I am still shaken up from the situation. I took photos of my daughter's legs and arms. I will never let my daughter go over to her dad's ever again. I beat myself up over this. If I knew that Haley would hit my child, I wouldn't have let her go over there in the first place. Am I the asshole here for punching my ex-husband's new girlfriend after she hit my daughter? Update. After 40 long days they made an arrest based on the evidence I gave them. My daughter's dad sent texts admitted to Haley beating our daughter with a belt, and the pictures of the welts and bruises on my daughters. She was recently arrested. My daughter no longer sees her father. I have full custody and I'm in the process of seeing if there's anything I can do to get his parental rights terminated. Read my last post for clarification. Stories number 16. Am I the asshole here for skipping the bathroom line to wash my hands? Basically what the title says, I, 30SF, was recently at the airport for a flight. I went to the ladies' bathroom to wash my hands about 15 minutes before boarding, so I could have waited. There was a line of about half a dozen women. And I made eye contact with the one at the front of line and told her I was just going to wash my hands. She had no issue with it. There were 2 sections of sinks, and I went to the one closest to the entrance. The next 5 sinks to the left of me were all unused in the time I was washing my hands. As I walked out barely a minute later, a woman towards the end of the line cupped her hands around her mouth as if to broadcast to everyone and said in a very condescending tone, "There's a Linny E," and laughed at herself. I was so taken aback that anyone had any issues with this that I only managed to mutter, "I was just washing my hands." So, as I walked out, I really didn't see an issue with what I did because I did not cause anyone to wait in line any longer than they would have, nor did I take up a sink that people ahead of me needed. But now I'm not so sure. What is the general public consensus of skipping the bathroom line to use an available sink? Was I the AH for doing so? Stories number 17. Am I the asshole for not inviting my nephew on vacation? For the last 20-ish years, I've planned a family trip. I love to travel, and this is a way to include my siblings and their children, 10 ppl, in my passion and a fun way to spend time together. I cover the cost of the tour and transport to the destination, and they cover the tips/incidentals. So far, we've gone to Turkey, South Africa, Vietnam, Croatia, Panama, Mongolia and Iceland. It's typically about $4,000 to $6,000 per person and requires months/years of planning and budgeting. I poll the family on their availabilities about 18 to 24 months prior to the planned trip. My nephew, late 20s, has RSVP'd yes for the last 4 trips, only to back out at the very last minute, the week prior, such that I can't recoup the cost of his fare, and the reasons he doesn't make it are never acceptable. For a travel insurance claim, work emergency, he's an accountant, friend's wedding, concert tickets, high school 10 years reunion. I'm currently planning a Galapagos cruise for October 2026 and decided not to extend the invite to my nephew because he's so unreliable. Now most members of my family are outraged and, though not actually boycotting the trip, incessantly vocal on their displeasure at my targeting my nephew. I've tried to compromise by requesting that he give me a deposit with the plan that I return it if he actually comes, but this only seemed to make people angrier. I mentioned canceling the entire thing, and now only my younger sister is speaking to me. She tells me that the family is in uproar about my selfishness and discussing writing me off permanently. If I actually cancel the trip, I'm in tears and just don't know what to do. I love my family. Was it asshole move to exclude my nephew? Stories number 18. Am I the asshole for refusing to pay my sister's wedding expenses after she called my child a mistake? Edit. Sorry, I forgot the TWs, self-harm, depression, SA. Too tired to do the song and dance, so if you want the rundown, it's on my account. I think I just desperately need to write this out. We went NC with the whole of my side of the family about a month and a half ago, aside from my other sister, not Clara. Decker has been in therapy, and frankly, so have I and Honey, both individually and a bi-weekly couples therapy session. A lot has changed. I didn't realize how much the abuse I suffered at the hands of my uncle really affected me. His reaction to Decker never bothered me or really had a stake in my emotional or mental state, but more that my mother made me forgive him and be polite when he was around. It's always been that way. I was the eldest, so I turned the other cheek until I had no cheeks, then I turned the old ones. I was never really permitted to have negative emotions or get angry. This situation with Clara blew a lot of dust up, and Honey and I started to have issues. She noted how reserved I tend to be, and even with her, I struggle with asking for what I want or expression displeasure. I shut down or deflect. It sucks to learn this about yourself when the rest of your world is falling apart. Clara was arrested for my assault and ended up doing a mental health program for a month rather than getting a conviction. As such, her record is clean of that. From what I understand, it was hard cutting her and the others off. My other sister was the one keeping me up to date on everything. Clara got out a while ago. She's been trying to get in touch every way she can. She got a new number, email, Facebook, even TikTok. She's written and mailed numerous letters. I am exhausted because I hate cutting everyone off. It's so isolating always having my siblings around and now only really having one sister so suddenly is really lonely. I focus on Decker and Honey seems happier overall. She's dancing in the kitchen again, is more affectionate with me, and is more excited to go out and do things, and Decker is also happier. We've focused less on her grades and praise her more for her sense of kindness, her stick-to-it attitude, and more. She's more open with me in particular. She talks about crushes and friends more now, shares about the intricate life of a teen. LOL, it's really very cute. I'm not so okay, but my family is safe and happy, which is what matters. Clara's fiancé Kevin reached out to me 2 days ago. Clara has been released and has been out for a week or so it sounds like, but she still has outpatient rehab to do. It's encouraged for her to have family and to be supported. Kevin says, and he says she isn't doing well. She started talking about self-harm and she confided in him that the same uncle that abused me, abused her. He's begging me to talk to her and help her through this. He keeps reminded me of how she was before all this and how close we were. Calling what we were close may be incorrect, because based on what I'm learning, our relationship was toxic from the start. I was an enabling sister to a manipulative and narcissistic one. I held my ground and spoke to Honey, who agrees I should keep NC and block Kevin and simply rely on my other sister for info. But I can't help but feel guilty. I wish Clara well, but I can't risk cracking the door open and risk the well-being of my family. I think I just feel alone. I know I can't have her in my life anymore. It just hurts. Sorry for the delay in update, and to those who have been gentle or at least firm but fair with me in my private messages, I thank you. There was never a manual on how to be a good wife or mother, and I have lived an existence of feeling so out of my depth. I appreciate the support. Stories number 19. My 26F, BF, 26M, wants to have a child and I am not ready, so he went behind my back. What to do? This is a throwaway account, as I don't want this on my main one. I'm a 26-year-old woman, and my boyfriend, also 26, and I have been together for 3 years. We met in graduate school, where we were in the same class, and after 6 months of dating, we moved in together. He's a wonderful boyfriend, kind, generous, and always willing to help out. We split household responsibilities 50-50ths. We're both in the same field, but he works from home while I go to the office 3 days a week. I handle breakfast, and he takes care of dinner on the days I go to work. All in all, things have been great between us. When we first started dating, we discussed everything from kids to marriage. We both agreed that we would wait until we're financially stable before taking that next step. While we're comfortable now and no longer living paycheck to paycheck, we still have student loans to pay off. Otherwise, we're debt-free. Recently, though, things have taken an unexpected turn. Over the past few weeks, my boyfriend has been trying to be intimate without using protection while I'm on birth control. We had always used protection in the past. A few weeks ago, we were at his parents' house, and his mom made a comment about how beautiful our children would be and how excited she was to be a grandmother. I brushed it off as a sweet, casual remark, as his parents have always been kind to me, but they've never brought up children before. Then, last week, I noticed my birth control pills were missing from the medicine cabinet. I asked my boyfriend about them, and he claimed he didn't know where they went. I thought he may have accidentally thrown them out and bought a new pack, but when I couldn't find that one either this week, I confronted him again. This time, he admitted that he had taken them because he wanted to start trying for a baby. I was shocked. We had not discussed having children, and we hadn't even talked about getting engaged within last 2 years. I reminded him that we had agreed to wait until we were more financially stable. He explained that he and his mom had talked and believed now was the right time to have a baby. Since we're no longer struggling financially, it hurt to hear that his mom was involved in this decision. I asked him if that was why she had brought up children, and he admitted that he had told his parents and friends we were trying for a baby, but had asked them not to tell me, claiming I wanted to surprise everyone. I feel betrayed. Instead of discussing it with me, he went behind my back. I told him I needed some time alone, so I went to my parents' house. I haven't told them the full story, just that he's on a work trip and I didn't want to be alone. I'm really confused about what to do next. I love him, but this feels like a huge betrayal. I'm not sure how to move forward. His mom has been calling me, and she spoke to my mom but hasn't mentioned anything about the situation to her. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Stories number 20. Am I the asshole for not letting my wife adopt my kids? I, 30M, have 2 kids ages 8 and 9, with my ex is still alive but she was in a car accident 2 years ago and requires around-the-clock care now so she's not able to be an involved mother to our kids. She and I were friends who tried being more but worked better as friends. I still love her as a friend. I visit my kids visit and my kids love their mom. I was dating my wife, 30F, when my ex had her accident. We got married a year ago. She loves my kids and has mentioned that she'd like to adopt them. I had some mixed feelings on that and I spoke to my kids, just a general talk with no pressure to give an answer either way. But neither were on board. They didn't want a new mom, which I respect. I told my wife I didn't think her adopting the kids was the right thing to do and at first she appeared to accept it. She told me she was disappointed but she also said she understood, but that wasn't the end of it and she has asked me why. She has asked me to reconsider. She told me about the benefits of her adopting them and she said she doesn't want to be considered a lesser parent because she's stepmom and not mom. My kids' feelings have remained unchanged. They like my wife but they do not consider her their mom. My wife said I'm being unfair that she's actively involved in the kids, she wants to mother them and to give them a mom back and she said I'm not letting her. She said if something happened to me she'd lose the kids and they'd lose her and when we have kids they'd be separated. I told her I wanted to act in my kids' best interest and that's where my decisions come from. My wife feels I'm unreasonable. She feels like I'm using her. She doesn't do all or even most of the child raising. She is a huge part of it but I'm very involved and active. I don't want her to feel used but I don't want to force this on my kids and honestly, it feels disrespectful to the mother of my children but my wife feels I'm not respecting her. Stories number 21. Am I the asshole and too sensitive when my hub uses girl to tease our sons? Updated, didn't expect this kind of response. I'm not a troll nor is this fake. I'm not divorcing him. We continue to have a lovely day as a family. I love my husband, he loves me. And we both love and want what's best for our sons. I guess sometimes it's just hard being the only girl in the house and not always understanding the way males interact, but that's what's beautiful about complementary genders. Hopefully we both pour the best of ourselves into our sons and when either of us makes a mistake, we own it, apologize. Forgive if we can model that for our boys, in addition to a million other things, maybe we will all be alright. My 46F husband, M50, and I have 3 sons, ages 14, 9, 9. We were setting up Christmas decorations and having a good time. The kids were going back and forth, teasing their dad and each other with roasts. It's not my favorite, I actually hate it, but when everyone else is laughing and not taking it seriously, I let it go. Then my husband called one of the boys a girl as a jab. Everyone else laughed. I said, honey. No. He said, what? I said, don't use my gender as an insult. He said, don't be so sensitive. We are guys, this is what we do. So, am I overly sensitive? No one else was bothered but I feel like being female is a beautiful thing and while they may be guys, I'm not and he chose to marry a not guy so why should it be an insult? And there is so much hate and disparagement in the world, why teach our sons to belittle any feature? Stories number 22. Am I the asshole for calling out my boyfriend's family for changing the sleeping arrangement rules to favor his brother and SIL? I, 24F, and my boyfriend Nathan, 26M, have been together for 6 years this year. We traveled to his parents' house for Thanksgiving. For context, Nathan is one of 4 brothers, Alex, single, Jack, married to Jill, Nathan, me, and Luke, married to Millie. With a nearly 2-year-old, everyone lives out of state except Luke and Millie. Nathan and I have the longest drive at 9 hours. Here's the issue, Nathan's parents, Mary and John, have only 2 guest bedrooms. 3 couples tend to visit at a time, meaning someone has to sleep on an air mattress in between the rooms. The first year I visited, I was told they'd rotate who gets the air mattress to keep it fair, but after 3 years on it, we were told it was now first come, first serve. Nathan's job doesn't allow much holiday time, so we're almost always last to arrive and stuck on the air mattress. While annoying, we understood, it seemed logical. This year was different. Nathan and I got Monday through Thursday off and would arrive first. I talked to Mary about how we were to finally get a bedroom, and she laughed, saying, yep, first come, first serve. Millie, who I've grown close to, knew we were thrilled about the prospect of getting a bed this year. She even decided to come early too so we could hang out, and we planned I'd take the twin room, and she'd take the queen. Here's where it gets frustrating. The day we left, I texted Mary our ETA. A few hours later, Millie texted me, saying Luke had spoken with Mary, who mentioned Jack and Jill would get the queen room and Luke and Millie the twin room, leaving Nathan and me on the air mattress again. Luke called Mary out, reminding her of the first come, first serve rule, but she suddenly claimed she never said that and justified her decision because Jack and Jill would be staying an extra day. For context, Jack and Jill were arriving a day later than us, so this reasoning felt like an excuse. When we arrived, Nathan brought up the rule again, but Mary got defensive, claimed she didn't remember ever saying it, and refused to budge. I said several sarcastic comments as I felt this was really unfair. I pointed out rules are rules. Until they didn't serve Jill, and that we always do it a certain way until that means Jill has to take the air mattress, and she could come up with any justification, but that doesn't make it fair. I even pointed out it's silly for us to now have to board out dogs and drive 8 hours before anyone else got here just to change the rules. Now she had plenty of time to bring this up. With our many conversations leading up to this, she became increasingly sassy about the situation, leaving us feeling defeated and, frankly, a little targeted. Am I the asshole for speaking up over thinking Mary unfairly changed the rules to suit Jack and Jill, and that we're always stuck with the short end of the stick? Update. I feel like I may have let y'all down on this one based on the advice, but here's how things went. Later Monday night, Nathan spoke to his mom, and we did get the bed for the one night before Jack and Jill arrived. Initially, it was only offered for us to move the air mattress into the queen bedroom for the night, but Nathan pointed out that we were being made to sleep on an air mattress when a bed was readily available. The next morning, Nathan had to run errands where we used to live before we moved. While he was gone, I washed the sheets and remade the bed, even though Luke and Millie told me I didn't have to wash them, just remake the bed. While everyone in the family is very clean, Mary always insists on washing the sheets between visitors. So I did it out of respect for her preferences. Millie and Luke even offered for us to take their bed, but honestly, it wasn't just about the bed, it was about the promises that were made and then retracted. Despite these rules being in place for years, it was also about the gaslighting and the fact that Mary didn't tell us ahead of time, even though there were so many chances to do so. As close friends to Luke and Millie, I didn't want to put them in the position of being uncomfortable on the air mattress either. While I've never had a child myself, I know your body isn't the same afterward, especially your back. We ultimately agreed to move the air mattress into Luke and Millie's room since they had a heater. And it gave us a little bit of privacy. We tried to make the most of the holidays and enjoy our time there. Despite everything, later, Mary mentioned plans to get 2 pull-out couches, one for the area between the rooms and one for the twin bedroom. While this was thoughtful, it still didn't address the issue of changing the rules to suit others. Mary has already stated that we'll have a bedroom for Christmas, but if this promise is broken again, we won't stay at their house in the future. Nathan and I have decided that if we don't get a bed for Christmas, we'll stay in a hotel. We're still planning to go because it's Luke and Millie's son's birthday. For Thanksgiving next year, if there isn't enough room, we're staying home. However, Nathan and I are currently planning on getting a house, and Luke and Millie suggested that once we do, we could host Thanksgiving there. They said they'd love to attend. Which is exciting because Millie and I are both avid bakers and love cooking. Whenever Millie and I bring dishes to these gatherings, they're barely touched, except by us and our partners. We're also planning to visit Luke and Millie more often. They are considering moving closer to the parents, and when they host holidays in the future, we'll always have a guaranteed space at their home. To address popular questions, for info on the last post. Alex, he doesn't come for Thanksgiving, he only saves his days off for Christmas. Also, he has rarely gotten put on an air mattress, only once that I remember, and that was Luke and Millie's wedding, when all 4 brothers used to come for holidays. It was Alex in the twin, editor's note, twin bedroom. Luke, pre-marriage or girlfriend, on the air mattress in that room, Nathan and I in between rooms, and Jack and Jill in the queen hotel. This house is in the middle of nowhere. Closest decent hotel is around 45 to 1 hour. The main draw of visiting is everyone, except parents, stay up late all evening playing board games, D&D, and drinking. We used to do a drunk gingerbread making contest. As for the distance to a hotel, that would mean missing out on hanging out. And there are no Ubers here. Also, before we moved this year, we didn't stay as many days and didn't mind staying on the air mattress 1, 2, 3 days due to what seemed fair to us. We also were the second closest CPL and just didn't get as much time off, which always made us last. Also, we didn't get a hotel this time after the incident. Due to saving up for a house/wedding, we didn't have spare cash floating around. Honestly, y'all know this economy and unexpected expenses. Millie and Luke, they live within the state. Barely, it's not feasible for them to stay home or us stay with them. Also, staying with Millie's parents isn't an option. They don't get along and interact due to their child, as Millie believes her child deserves a relationship with his grandma even if she doesn't have a great relationship with her mom. Also, there is no room. Mary, this was completely out of character for Mary. In fact, the only person everyone in the house has an issue with is John. Mary is the one who wants all of their sons home for the holidays and goes out of her way to make sure we'll all attend. Usually, Luke does believe the change was due to his dad and their mom was made the messenger because the mom is usually a big person on fairness, and mostly have had no issues, other than ones John pushed her into. This was also backed up by John's reaction to hearing we stayed in the room for one night before this interaction. Mary is one of 4 people that I've stated I'd take a bullet for, due to her normal kindness. Jack and Jill, most in the house has had an issue with them previous holidays. They have thrown a fit due to us voting on where to eat, and none of us wanted to go where they chose, so they refused to eat with us. Jill is the main issue of this, and similar things happen every time. This year Millie asked if we could play the board game in their room one night as she was on the phone with her sister playing an online game, and we didn't have much room due to the air mattress. Jill stated she wasn't willing to. And either it was in our room or they weren't playing. They are also the reason we have to board the dogs. Their dog is aggressive, and with a small child it's not safe. However, if they aren't attending, we are allowed to bring our dogs. Chronic illness, pregnancy. For all the comments about pregnancy, Jill is not pregnant about health reason. Millie has some chronic illness they are still trying to figure out. Jill used to be on the overweight side but has lost a significant amount in 3 years. I have insomnia. Both Millie and I have bipolar disorder and endometriosis. This is inconvenient due to my period usually hitting during the holidays. Stories number 23. Am I the asshole here for refusing to make my boyfriend dinner? Okay, so here's the deal. I, 26F, have been with my boyfriend, 28M, for about 2 years. We live together, and I'm the one who usually cooks because I enjoy it, and honestly, I'm just better at it. He can boil water sometimes, lol. Anyway, last night, he came home from work and immediately plopped himself on the couch. I asked him how his day was, and he just grunted at me like I'm his roommate or something. Whatever, I let it slide. Then, around 7 p.m., he's like, "What's for dinner?" And I told him I hadn't started cooking yet because I'd been busy cleaning the house and doing laundry. He kinda scoffed and said, "Well, I've been working all day, can't you just throw something together?" And that just rubbed me the wrong way. Like, yes, you work a 9 to 5, but I work too, freelance, so at home, and I also handle 99% of the housework. I told him he could figure out dinner himself, and he got all pouty, saying he was too tired and didn't know what to make. I suggested ordering takeout, but he said he didn't want to spend money. Long story short, I stood my ground and didn't cook. He ended up eating cereal and was super passive-aggressive the rest of the night, slamming cupboards and sighing dramatically. This morning, he made a snide comment like, "Guess I know where I stand now," and now I'm wondering if I was too harsh. Like, I get that he's tired, but so am I. I feel like a jerk, but also, I'm not his personal chef. Update. Hey everyone, I wanted to give you an update after reading all the comments. Thank you to everyone who gave advice, even the tough love. After reading all your comments and really thinking about it, I decided I needed to have a serious talk with my boyfriend about how I've been feeling. I told him I was overwhelmed from doing almost all the cooking and housework on top of my freelance work, and that it wasn't fair for me to carry the bulk of everything just because I work from home. He didn't take it well. He got defensive and said things like, "You're making a big deal out of nothing," and, "I work harder, so it makes sense you'd handle the rest." That really hurt because it made me realize he doesn't respect the work I do, whether it's my job or taking care of our apartment. I tried explaining that I didn't mind helping more but that I wasn't willing to keep doing everything. Instead of meeting me halfway, he doubled down, saying he shouldn't have to change anything because he's the one who pays more of the bills. That was the final straw for me. I realized I deserve a partner who sees us as equals and who's willing to put in the effort to make things fair, so I ended things. It's been hard because 2 years is a long time, but I already feel lighter knowing I'm no longer stuck in a relationship where my contributions aren't valued. Thank you to everyone who gave me the push I needed to stand up for myself. I'm sad, but I know this was the right choice for me. Stories number 24. To fool by turning my daughter into a wannabe superhero with an incredibly strong moral compass. To preface this story, I am going to start with my opinion. I do not believe what my daughter did was wrong. In fact, I am incredibly proud of her, even though she may have been overzealous. Her reasoning are very much in the right place. We have discussed at length what she should do if ever in this situation again, which I hope she is not. So, let's start in the beginning, as it is the best place to start. TLDR at the bottom, as per tradition. Also, just letting you all know this is a new account and my first time posting on Reddit, long time lurker. If I did anything wrong, sorry. I, 35F, have a wonderful 9-year-old daughter. She is smart, and outgoing and just incredibly strong. 2 years ago, me and my ex-husband divorced. He fell out of love with me and fell into the bed of a 21-year-old. It's a story as old as time, but it doesn't hurt any less. About 6 months ago, I was mugged on my way home from work. I was messed up. I was covered in bruises, and in a lot of distress mentally. My ex is not a present father. He moved to France for work about 3 months after the divorce was finalized, so he wasn't able to help look after my daughter while I was healing. She spent some time with my mom, but she saw me at my worst. I have a lot of guilt about that. She began getting very anxious to leave the house. She didn't want to leave my side. She was worried Mummy would get hurt again. A friend of mine's son was being bullied at school a while back. She enrolled him in some karate classes, not for fighting, more to build his confidence, and it really worked for him. She suggested that maybe putting my girl in some classes may help her feel more secure. I suggested this to her and she wanted to do them. But wanted me to do them too, which, to be honest, was probably a very good decision. I spoke to the sensei and asked if I could sit in on the beginner's class with her, etc. I explained the situation, and he agreed. We both loved it. She picked it up so quick, and she loved the play activities with the other children. A few months after we started, she was leaps and bounds ahead of me and ready to play with a more advanced level of students. The bonus of that is the night the advanced kids met was after the beginner adults met. So we changed out nights. I started training with adults. She carried on with the advanced kids. She has picked it up so quickly. Her confidence in her ability is sky high too. A few times when we have been out, she has seen something that has worried her, like someone walking towards us, and she will grip my hand a little tighter and move herself in front of me. I keep reminding her I am the adult, we are safe, and this is not her burden. For anyone wondering, mental health care is hard in the UK. We are not very well supported. She has spoken to a counsellor that works with her school. She hasn't said that she needs to see anyone more, but we are on a waiting list. Therapy never hurt anyone, so why not look into it? But I can't afford to go private, and the NHS just takes a very, very long time. Fast forward a few weeks. Last week was her first week back in school after the summer holidays. There was a new student in her class. We will call them Alex. Alex and my daughter have become the fastest of friends. She couldn't stop speaking about him. On Monday when she came home from school, Alex likes this food, Alex likes this TV show. Alex said, Alex did, etc. It's adorable, but my kid has took it upon herself to be Alex's bodyguard. Alex is a very expressive child. They wear a school uniform, but Alex likes to wear nail polish. He has long hair which they wear pulled back or in a plait. He has bows on his shoes. He just wears what he wants and has the confidence to rock a potato sack if that is what he feels comfy in. His parents are amazing too. They have been so welcoming of my daughter and me too. We have had drinks this weekend after the incident and they are wonderful people. So, the incident. Last Thursday, Alex changed his black nail polish for a deep plum purple color. Some of the boys in their class decided to show how bad their upbringing was and told Alex, "You're a boy, you shouldn't wear girly things, because that's what makes you gay." Both Alex and my daughter told them to shut up and go bother someone else. This is when one of the bullies says, "If you're wearing girly stuff tomorrow, I'm going to kill you." Yeah, you read that right. So my girl, being a defiant little menace, decided she wasn't going to tell an adult. We have had a very long conversation about this, don't worry, and she was going to handle this herself. Alex also decided he was going to handle things his own way too. Friday morning rolls round, the plum nail polish has gone and in its place is the most beautiful and vivid pink you have ever seen, and his hair was in an elaborate Viking-style plait. It must have took a while. It was stunning. Well, apparently, this was like waving a red flag in front of the bully boy's face. He marched up to Alex and told him he was going to kill him at lunchtime. My girl told him he could try, but she wouldn't let him. Lunch came around and they were outside for playtime. True to his word, the bully started to run at Alex and my girl took him out. Now, bear in mind up until this morning I only really had the details from 2 9-year-olds, so when Alex told me she flew, I was fairly hesitant to believe him. He told me she punched the boy in the face, made him bleed, which made him cry, and now he is petrified of her. I got a phone call from the school after lunch asking me to come and pick her up because she has been suspended for fighting. Alex was refusing to leave her and saying that if she was suspended so was he, because it wasn't her fault. Alex's dad arrived at the same time I did to collect out kids. The headmaster told us that it was pending an investigation and we would be called in for a meeting on Monday. Obviously, when my daughter told me the full story, I was livid. I asked why she didn't tell a teacher. She said she wanted to handle it so he knew he couldn't threaten people, but she told a teacher after the fact and they didn't believe her, so I am even more livid at this point. I contact Alex's parents and discuss, have a drink, bond over our kids, etc. So this morning 8 a.m. rolls around, I am sat in front of the headmaster. He begins to bemoan about how my daughter has brought violence to the school, how she has broken a boy's nose, and I shit you not. How this is very unladylike behavior. I was honestly aghast. We are a zero-tolerance school when it comes to violence. My daughter had been stood on top of a little wall at the edge of the playground, essentially keeping watch. She saw the kid running towards Alex. When he got close enough, she launched herself off the wall. Straight at the boy. She essentially did a flying punch, landed on him, and then proceeded to lock her arms in his and keep him in place until the playtime supervisor arrived. I asked him how his investigation has gone, and he said he has spoken to the boy, and because this was a completely unprovoked attack, my daughter would be suspended further for the week, with a behavior management program, and she would be expected to apologize to the boy she hit. I'll be honest guys, I have never been the confrontational type. I think it skipped a generation, but in that moment I summoned the spirit of my little girl. I asked him how he could have completed the investigation, if neither my daughter, Alex, or the parents had been involved, how he had come to such a conclusion without any facts or evidence. He just stumbled over his words. I asked him, so is this what happens when students call someone names and threaten to kill them? You punish the person protecting them. He was silent and said it was the first time he has heard of this, and that he had been told it was unprovoked and my daughter was the only aggressor. I asked him who told him this, and he was silent. I then called him a liar and that he was informed of the situation because both my daughter and Alex told him. I left the meeting telling him that my daughter was not suspended, however she would not be in school until the situation had been dealt with to a satisfactory conclusion. I have emailed her teacher and asked her to forward any work she would have been doing in class, and she will do it from home. I have her with me in the office today, and my boss is letting me work from home for the rest of the week. I know I am responsible in part for what she has done. I know violence isn't the answer. I am very proud of her for standing up for what she believes in, but we have had a talk about how she needs to always tell me things like this. I am furious with her school. I called Alex's mom when I got out of the meeting. Alex isn't in today because they are having a meeting this afternoon about the bullying Alex has been subjected to. She has supported my actions though and said that if she doesn't get the right response today she will be pulling Alex too. There aren't many primary schools locally that will have space left for them if the best decision is to pull them out of this school permanently, but I am not happy with how the headmaster has dealt with the situation, to be honest. Thanks for listening. I just needed to word vomit into a void. I have fucked my daughter up royally, I know. Update. Hello everyone. I am not sure how updating works, but after the many responses I received yesterday, I just wanted to keep you all in the loop of the situation. I asked the mods if I was allowed to post an update and they agreed. Thank you mods. If you don't know me, here is my post from yesterday. Firstly, please can I thank everyone in the comments showing support and sharing your own stories. Thank you. I honestly thought, and still do to some extent, that I have effed up and failed my daughter. I thought her need to protect came from the fact she had seen me so broken. A comment which I have now lost said something along the lines of, "Mummy got hurt by bad people, and now her friend is being threatened." So she wanted to stand up for us. As honorable as that is, I don't want my little girl to feel that way. I want her to be a child for as long as she can be. I want her to play with her friends and have no cares in the world apart from who's going to be the goalkeeper, or if she wants ham or turkey on a sandwich. Do you know what I mean? I have spent some time with her over the weekend and last night reassuring her of that fact. I am always in her corner, I am always right behind her, and I will always believe her, no matter what she has promised me going forward that she will always tell me, from the small things to the big things. I'm her mom, no matter her age. She is always going to be my baby and I am always going to go to bat for her. We have also discussed if she feels safe in the school and if she feels the teachers would have dealt with it if she had told them. She said she feels safe, but she doesn't know if they would do anything. But she has never asked. This is something I will be keeping an eye on and discussing with other parents if their children have similar feelings. So, on to the update. My daughter is suspended until Wednesday. I had a meeting with the deputy headmaster, because the headmaster is unavailable today. Alex's mom, who for ease I am going to call Joanne, had a meeting with him yesterday afternoon. For context, my meeting with him was about 20 minutes long. Joanne kept him locked in the office with her for nearly 2 hours. In those 2 hours, she made him go through chapter and verse the anti-bullying policy and explain each point to her. Joanne told me she had him admit that what the other child said to Alex alone should have been grounds for punishment. He still claims he had not been told about the threats and wants to open an investigation into his staff to get to the bottom of it. Joanne told him she didn't care right now how he handled his staff. He needs to stop trying to place blame elsewhere, and take accountability. She told him, her first and only concern right now was that her child had been at the school less than a week and had received a threat of death twice. And the only person being punished is the only person who stood up for him. He reiterated that, we have a zero-tolerance policy, to which Joanne stopped him mid-sentence and asked him why her son wasn't included in that policy. He apologized and said, I can see how that could look that way, however he has not said how he would be fixing it because he has to do another investigation. I am starting to think he has a word of the day calendar or something. My meeting with the deputy head was very basic. I think it was essentially just to placate me, but I have everything documented. If I need to go through this again, my daughter has been suspended for fighting, she can return to school tomorrow morning. I did ask if the other child will be punished, but was told they can't discuss the other child, and TBH, that is fair, but I will be monitoring the situation. There will be no behavior report or forced apology. Last night, we went to Alex's house and had dinner. Alex keeps telling my daughter, you're on my Christmas card list for life. I don't know where he got it from, but they think it's hilarious. My daughter has convinced Alex to try karate. They are very excited. It's karate night for us on Thursday. I will be talking with Sensei Paul about the altercation just so they can have a chat about safety, when to fight, etc. More than anything else, I just want her to be safe. She isn't an army. She is still a little person and she needs to remember that sometimes. I also told my daughter I told her story to some people online, and I showed her some of the nicer comments. I asked her if she would like to choose a name you can call her. She has chosen Hawk. Suddenly something clicked into place. The flying punch she did, it was a Cobra punch. The character Hawk, Cobra Kai, does them a lot. You sort of kick your leg like you're going to kick the opponent but instead move with a punch. No one has taught her this move, but I have seen her jump off the settee and sort of do it before. When we started doing karate, I took that as an opportunity to introduce her to the Karate Kid series. And obviously following that we started Cobra Kai. She is absolutely obsessed with Hawk and Tori. Minor spoiler for Cobra Kai, please don't talk to her about the end of the last season. She is very upset with Tori right now, so we have now had another discussion about how we shouldn't replicate things we see in TV and movies. Parenting is hard and I have the teen years to come, yet I might just dye my hair gray now and get it over with. One more thing I would like to address. I had two really horrid DMs regarding Alex's gender identity and sexual orientation. Firstly, they are 9. He is figuring out who he is. If they are LGBTQ+, then that's who they are, but it's no one's place but Alex's to determine that he likes bright colors. He likes how makeup and nail polish makes people look. He is just unapologetically himself, and we can all learn a thing or two about that. Oh, another thing, I never understood why people felt the need to justify themselves to the people in the comments claiming their stories were AI generated, but now experiencing it, it kinda stings a little. I am not writing this for validation. I don't know enough to care about whatever karma points are, and I wouldn't know how to use ChatGPT if my life depended on it. I can't prove to you I am human, and this is real, nor does it really matter, but please be careful who you say that to. Someone could be out here pouring their heart out and you completely diminish that by diminishing them. Just be kind to people, or don't say anything at all. You know what they say, opinions are like arseholes, everybody has one and they all stink. Anyways, Hawk saw some of the comments saying she deserves a treat. A lot of you were saying ice cream. She doesn't want that. She wants a sword. Apart from being terrifying sometimes, I think she is going to be okay. I am going to buy her this training sword, and I think maybe some books about the samurai if anyone has any other suggestions. I am all ears. I don't know if they will be a good or bad role model, but she seems like she has developed a passion for martial arts, and I am all about supporting physical activities, but getting some history in there would be amazing too. I'm sorry, I intended to keep this brief, but I just seem to waffle. I think I need to find more adults to talk to. Haha, I was never much into journaling growing up, but I can see why people do it. It's nice to just get everything in your head out of there, and in black and white things can seem a lot more simple when they are on the page. Anyway, I am not sure what the future holds, but I know we will tackle it head on, sword in hand apparently. Thank you for the love, I really needed it. You are all great people. Stories number 25. Am I the asshole here for thinking about divorce? Throwaway, as my husband knows my Reddit. I 34F, have been with Ken, not his real name, 37M. Since I was 16. We met in school as he was my brother's friend. We have been married for 10 years, have a 2-year-old son and one on the way. Ken has always been my person, the person who you can't picture life without, and I honestly can't remember not loving him. I grew up with him, he's my everything. Unfortunately, Ken has this issue where he takes on everyone else's feelings like to heart. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. However, recently his best friend of 20 years has just found out that his wife has been cheating on him and none of the children are his. Obviously his friend is devastated and is staying in our guest room. He's a nice guy, just life has him down right now. He started the process of divorce. The more time Ken spends with his friend, the more depressed He's become and distant. Our mornings used to start where I would wake up at 6 a.m. with our son, make breakfast, then about 8 a.m. I could wake Ken up with a coffee and some breakfast before going to drop little one off at nursery and go to work. Ken works from home most days, only going into the office on a Monday, so I'd give him his coffee, he'd give me a kiss, and then I'd go off on my happy little way. Then I'd finish work, get our son, and go home where Ken would be making tea. I'd clean up after whilst he was bathing our son and putting him to bed. I thought this was life. It might sound boring to some, but it was my life and I loved it. Our house was filled with love. We would spend our nights cuddling, talking, watching a movie. Date night once a month we would take our son out together on a Saturday and then Sunday go visit family or have friends over. You get the picture. I'm rambling, sorry. Anyway, for the past month things have been changing. Ken is more depressed. I make him a coffee in the morning and just get a mumbled thanks. I'd come home from work and the friend and him would be in the living room watching sports. I'm now making tea, bathing our son. Neither of them will barely talk to me. We don't go out on the weekends together. I feel like a single parent. I've tried to talk to Ken about it all, but I get one-worded answers. Then he stays up till about 1 a.m., which I know it's not super late, but I'm passed out by then. I'm exhausted, alone and pregnant. I miss my husband. Yesterday I came home from work and you know when something just doesn't feel right. Well, I went to find Ken to see what he was doing as his friend wasn't in the house, but Ken's car was. He was in his office looking up DNA kits for our son. I asked him why and his response was, well, I just want to make sure all the kids are mine before I continue looking after them, as I'm not a free childcare. This broke me. When I say I'm devastated it's an understatement, but if he thinks that I've cheated on him then surely the trust is gone. Is there any going back? Am I just being pregnant and hormonal? Would I be extreme for looking for a divorce? I could put the papers in the envelope with the results from the DNA test. I think I'm gonna go cry in bed now. Had to take the day off work as I feel like I've just been gut punched. I've asked my husband to move out. Am I taking this too far? Hello Reddit. Well, after my post earlier this afternoon I cried, then read all your lovely comments and I couldn't be more grateful. I think posting about it here really helps for some reason. Weird how telling complete strangers that I'm struggling with life seems to help. So I think after my pity party, which couldn't last long due to being a parent, I called my stepmom and dad. My mum died when I was 10, they are coming to stay with me on Friday. Crying on the phone helped, although I'm not really sure they could truly understand a word of what I was saying. I've spoken to Ken, well, more like spoke at Ken, telling him that his friend has till Thursday to leave. I'm not a monster and can't just tell him to leave at the drop of a hat. I've also told Ken he needs to leave too. Whilst yes, I could go to my dad's house, I don't want to disrupt my little one more than needed, and all the things for my baby is here too, especially as I'm 8 months along. It just seems stupid for me to be the one to leave. I've made it a point of not pointing out it's my house either. I'm trying to be calm and sensible. I'm not 100% sure Ken listened, but I did message his sister, who is a force to be reckoned with, and she said she will make sure he's gone by Thursday night. Things I've told Ken I want is yes, he can have the DNA test, but I will be damned if I'm the one to do it. He can also have one for the baby, as I ain't got shit to hide. I know that some people have questioned why I'm so against it. Let me make something clear. I would never cheat because, as I said in my last post, Ken is / or was I to know, my person. He's the only man I've ever been with, so that isn't any concern of mine. I'm just hurt that he wants one because clearly he doesn't trust me. So things I want him to have the DNA tests, mainly so I can make him eat the results. Not literally, I'm just venting. I'm also going to suggest couples therapy. I already see one due to losing my mum and my little sister in a car crash when I was little. I want to suggest he sees one alone, but you can lead a horse to water but can't make him drink it. I don't want to force him to do anything he doesn't want to do. I want him to maintain contact with our son. Yes, he doesn't believe he's the father right now, but that's no reason he should neglect him, as he's his, and I don't want to upset my son. Yeah, he's only 2, but still he deserves all the love from both his parents. He's done nothing wrong. Then obviously this one, when she comes along. Still not sure about the state of my marriage, but even if divorce is what happens, I need to be able to get through to him so he can be the father he was. Am I going insane? Do I sound insane? I don't know why writing here helps so much. Thanks Reddit. My husband got his DNA test results. He still thinks I've cheated. Hello again. I don't know how to update posts, so I just had to make another one. Following my 2 other posts I will answer some questions. Yes, it is my house. It was left to me when my mom died. I have lived here all my life. I didn't move out because I have a child and one on the way, so why should I be the one to leave? I get that some people believe I was the for asking him to leave, but as I was heavily pregnant, have a toddler, and it's my house, I wasn't about to leave. Yes, he could have stayed, but have you tried living with someone who just wants to argue or just not talk? I prefer my child not to live in that environment. Thank you. At the end of the day I'm a mother first and a wife second. If you think that's harsh then I don't know what to tell you. My children come first. End of. Well, Ken's friend did leave the day I told him he had till Thursday. He wasn't happy about it and shouted some insults at me, which was amazing. Ken's sister came and picked up Ken. I wish I could tell you what she said, but she didn't say anything in front of me, just kept giving Ken death stares. We did get the DNA test for little one and Ken is the father. Obviously Ken somehow thinks I've intercepted the results even though I wasn't the one that did it. I wasn't the one that got handed the results ECT, so he's clearly lost his mind. My dad came over and whilst I was making tea my waters broke. My little girl is here, she healthy and happy. She was 9 pounds 8 ounces, so no concern of anything with her. I'm now a mum of 2. I am home now and Ken has been to see his baby girl, although as she's not had a DNA test he disagrees with her being his because his family doesn't have many girls, yet. He has a sister, so I just rolled my eyes. I don't really know where to go from here. Ken is refusing therapy. He says there's nothing wrong with him or his brain. I beg to differ. He wants to get another DNA test for our boy but won't tell me when or where, so I can't interfere. Maybe one day he will come to his senses. My dad and stepmom are staying with me for a while to help me with the babies. I'd like to say I'm okay, but honestly my emotions are all over the show. I don't know which was is up. Ken's sister visits the babies and we have an unspoken rule that we don't speak about Ken apart from when our son asks about him. I wish it was the kind of update where he got the results, seen how much of an idiot he's been and we move on, but sadly that's not the case. I can't dwell on it too much, just take shit one day at a time. I do miss my person and worry that he's missing out on his baby girl's life already, which if I think about too much I will just sit and cry, but I don't have time for that. As always, thanks for listening to me rant. I might update if anything else happens in my life. Right now I'm still left wondering if I'm doing the right thing here. Is there anything I could do differently? Why are my kids so hard for him to accept all of a sudden? Am I the asshole for making it difficult for him to find a solicitor? Hello again Reddit. Things have been bizarre, but now I have closure. I know what's happened to my marriage. I know what scum Ken really is. He's not my person and never truly was, so now I just want to divorce him, cut my losses and move on with my life. I'm still at home with my babies, settling into motherhood. My dad and stepmom are still here, but they will be leaving soon once I'm more emotionally stable. To say I'm okay would be a lie, but I now know what I need to do. I have some sort of closure with Ken. I know what happened with him and I know that it's not my fault. Turns out Ken was having an affair and has a baby on the way. Even typing that makes me want to throw up. I found this out when a visibly pregnant lady just knocked on my door and asked me when I would be leaving the house, as it's Ken's house. When I say this confused the crap out of me, I mean it. I talked to this woman for a while to try to work out what she was talking about. It turns out that she's Ken's side piece. Well, technically in her head she's his fiancée. A month ago Ken got down on one knee and proposed to her in my fucking kitchen. Classy, right? So they have been seeing each other for a while. She's having his baby. She believes I'm the ex-wife who Ken is letting him stay in his house till I get on my feet. We apparently broke up a few years ago and none of my kids are Ken's. When I go to work in the mornings Ken goes to her house and works from there. They were waiting for marriage to move in together. How you trying to marry someone when you are already married? Fucking weirdo. I asked for proof of all this. She has pictures of them together. Apparently she has a account that they make content together. I told her we are still married and explained everything to her. I'm not sure what she's going to do, but hey, not my circus, not my monkey. Now I want a divorce. Is it true that once you talk to a solicitor about divorce they can't represent the person you divorce? I want to go around our town and meet with as many solicitors as possible, as the first hour is free, so that he has a very hard time getting representation. Is that too petty? The house is in my name only and is protected, so there is no way he can take it. I have all my money and we do have a joint account, but that's just what we put our share of household bills in. I haven't spoken directly with Ken. His family have completely cut him off and he's been kicked out of his sister's house. All those people that was concerned about him having tumor or something wrong with his brain, I really don't think that's the case. I think his actions just caught up to him as his lies were going to come out once his baby was born. I think that's what happened. He got backed into a corner and tried to fight his way out. Through divorce process I will get the court to do DNA testing so he has proof for both, even if he chooses to not believe it. I'm mentally exhausted from all of this and sat wondering how I didn't notice. Might have to go for an eye test. But honestly, would I be so wrong for just making his life as difficult as possible to get legal advice, or is that too far? I want him to suffer. New update, 1 year later. I'm finally divorced and couldn't be happier. December 1st, 2024, 1 year later. Well, hello there again Reddit. I'm okay. I totally just forgot about my ramblings on here. LOL. I'm doing okay. I'm officially divorced from Ken. It took a long time to get to this part of my life, and in some points I actually felt like I was drowning. Both of my kids had a DNA test through the courts and they are Ken's. He still doesn't believe it. Not my problem though. Ken is now in prison for domestic abuse. I'm not 100% on the details because I wasn't involved. It was his side piece. I'd love to say that sometimes I don't break down in tears and I'm completely over it, but I'm not. I've now gone back to work though. After my maternity leave was finished, I got a promotion and now I'm used to living with just us three. My kids keep me going and I'm so proud of them. They go visit their grandparents and dad's side of the family and they have been so lovely and supportive. His sister is still amazing. I don't really know what else to say, just I'm okay. I'm divorced and my children are thriving. I can't thank Ken for a lot of things, but I'm grateful for my children. Stories number 26. Am I the asshole for not greeting my mom's partner? My mom's partner visits our house pretty frequently, pretty much every week. I, 18M, don't have a problem with him at all. He's really nice and very respectful. I've always greeted him and made conversation when he visits. On to the start of the problem. I had a really terrible day the other day and came home super exhausted and just out of it. To be honest, it wasn't just that day, it's been the past week. I think I'm getting burned out from school, work, and commuting. I greeted my family half-heartedly and explained that I was really tired before going up to my room for the night. The next day, my mom's partner arrived. But I was still sleeping. I remember repeatedly waking up with a headache but then falling back asleep for the rest of the day. My mom came in a few times to ask me if I could hang out with them, but I remember telling her no, thank you, that evening. I only got up to submit an assignment I forgot about and then I went back to bed to fall asleep again. The next morning, I felt a little better but still had a hard time getting out of bed. I only fully woke up at 12 p.m. Went down to eat a snack and drink water, but my family and mom's partner weren't there. Went back upstairs to do some homework before falling asleep again. When I finally got the energy to get out of bed to clean up and eat properly, it was already evening again and my family was back, but my mom's partner already left. My mom scolded me for not coming down to greet him and is upset, ignoring me. It really wasn't my intention to be rude, I was just so out of it. Am I the asshole? Stories number 27. My brother-in-law, 56M, basically asked me, 28F, for birthday sex. Do I tell my sister, 26F, or approach BL? So my sister and BIL have been married for 2 years now, started dating 4 years ago. I've had a ton of health issues this year and my sister has been working 2 jobs and almost every day of the week for several months, and has not had the time to be there for me much, so I've been asking BIL for help with things occasionally, which my sister was fine with. As a result we've been chatting more, but I'm quite sure I've never given any romantic signals. They are also financially struggling quite a bit, and I saw someone at my apartment was giving away free cat food, so I texted them and asked if they wanted it. They did, so BL came and picked it up the day before his birthday. We chatted for around an hour and afterwards he initiated this text conversation. BIL, I appreciate you so much, it was nice having a great conversation with you. Me, sure thing. I appreciate you guys as well. BL, you guys? Gotcha. BIL, have you ever had a birthday wish or any wish that you knew there were consequences for even asking but you still wanted to ask anyway in hopes that your birthday wish could come true? Me, can you elaborate? BL, I can't unfortunately, that's totally fine. He sent kissy faces before, but I really just wanted to believe he's old and just doesn't understand the emoji. I talked to my sister around a month ago and she told me they're not having sex anymore cause sex just isn't her thing, so I'm 99% sure he was asking for sex. What I really want to do is tell my sister and show her the text, but honestly I don't know if she could handle knowing her husband tried to cheat with her sister at that she was molested for 10 years by our choir director as a kid and her mental health was horrible for many years until she met BIL. She's been doing a lot better. But she's also extremely emotionally and financially reliant on him, and doesn't have any close friends. She's also working all the time, exhausted, and has been sick for the past 3 weeks. BIL has honestly been a really great person up until this point. I've always felt uncomfortable with the age difference, especially given her history of her sexual abuse, but my sister was doing so much better with him in her life. Maybe this was just a poor judgment call because he's desperate for sex since his wife doesn't provide that. He's also introverted and doesn't have many other women in his life and wouldn't be able to afford an escort or anything. I also worry that if I tell my sister she will backlash and blame me, as I've read this is a fairly common response to telling someone their significant other is cheating. With all my health problems I really can't afford to lose them from my life. I can't even work full time right now because my health is so bad and might be homeless in a few months. Because I've had chronic illness for several years, I haven't had the energy to build up any kind of my own support network, and all my other friends live 1 to 3 hours away now. TLDR, my sister decided she's ACE and isn't having sex with BIL anymore. BIL strongly alluded to asking me for sex in the above text exchange. I have significant health problems and am extremely dependent on them and can't risk them turning on me if I tell my sister. Sister also has a lot mental health problems but has been doing so much better since she met BL, despite the age difference. I see two options. Tell my sister directly. Honestly, in the long term I see this as the best thing for her, since she really just needs to find an ACE partner that also doesn't want sex, especially with the possibility that no-fault divorce could be removed in the US. I feel she should do this before it's no longer an option, but I worry about myself having no support. And also that she won't be able to handle the news, then spiral into a depression, do nothing, and hate everyone. Tell BIL he needs to talk to his wife about having an open relationship and give him a chance to fix it. It's tough being in a sexless relationship, so I can understand that he feels desperate. My sister also has 4 cats and depends on him for health insurance, so wouldn't be able to take care of herself if they divorced. But I also feel completely ick that he would ask me, who's also ill, his wife's sister, for sex as some kind of favor, and don't see their marriage as sustainable realistically. Update. I just want to thank you guys so much for the advice and support. I've read each and every message and it has been so helpful in getting me to decide on a path forward. I will go the route of showing her the texts and stating that I feel confused/uncomfortable about them and am wondering if she knows what he's talking about. Letting her deduce for herself what he means. I plan to do this in person. She said she might be available Monday evening, 12/9, so I'll shoot for that time. I have a queen-sized bed, so I'll offer her to temporarily stay at my apartment while she processes the situation. Long term she will likely have to find another place because I have 2 cats and she has 4, and I don't see her being able to part with them. I'll post another update once I'm able to meet with her. Stories number 28. Sat down on my friend's MacBook and broke it, offered to pay her the money for it, but now she wants more because she was upgrading anyway, so it's this or she will sue me in small claims court. I had some of my friends over at my house and one of my friends invited one of her other friends to come over. She had her MacBook on my couch when I sat on it and broke it. Since it was completely my fault, I offered to pay her the money for it and she agreed. She got it 3 years ago and it cost $2,200 at the time. I told her I'd wire you the money in a week to her bank account. She's now emailed me saying that as per our conversation she's expecting the $2,700 that I have agreed for. I didn't know why she added the extra money, so I got her number from my friend and called her to find her, telling me she's now expecting me to pay for her new upgraded MacBook since she was upgrading anyway. She said if I don't agree to do that she'll be suing me in small claims court. Can a judge agree to that? Should I wire her the $2,200 or should I just tell her go sue me? Location is California. Super awesome update, 7 weeks later. I never thought this would turn out the way it did, and I really felt like I learned so much stuff in the process thanks to all of you. I went through every single comment from the 200+ ones and I sincerely thank each and every one of you. I did some research specifically for repairing the screen for the MacBook, and for her particular model it's around $310 for the screen plus the labor cost, so I wrote her back saying that since she didn't accept my initial offer of $2,200, I'm withdrawing that offer and offering to pay for the repair cost. She sent me an email calling me a bitch and that she's going to take me to court. I got served a few days later and went to court. I told the judge I gave her 3 options to choose from. Either to write her a check for a brand new one, which was $2,200, get her a refurbished one from Apple or a third party or even used, which would be around $1,400, or fix her current MacBook since the screen is the only thing affected here and it would cost around $300 plus money for labor. I printed out the email I sent her and the mail she sent back refusing, demanding the $2,700 and calling me a bitch and saying we'll go to court, plus screenshots for the price quotes from different websites for a new/refurbished and the screen fix for her particular model, and gave it to the judge. I also told him that when I offered at the very beginning to get her a new one from the Apple store, she said no, I want the money in cash. When I told her I'd give her $2,200 for a new one, she said okay, but later came asking for $2,700 because she wants to upgrade. I tried to show him how it's clearly visible that she's trying to take advantage of me. She gave the judge an attitude almost the whole time, which really pissed the judge off and helped my case. I guess after listening to both of us he ruled that I pay 50% of the repair costs since she negligently left her laptop on the couch, so I'll only be paying not more than $200 to $250 for the whole thing. If it weren't for you guys I would have paid $2,200 instead of around $200 and I honestly loved her look at the end as we walked out. I feel good for following all the advice here. Stories number 29. Coworker claimed I didn't bring the food I brought for the Thanksgiving potluck. Just found this thread and it reminded me of the time I brought pasta salad for a Thanksgiving potluck. I was trying my best to assimilate to the environment and thought I'd make pasta salad in a Pyrex dish. I left it out so people could dig into it as I went about my work. I came back for lunch and not only did I find I was the only one who brought in a dish, but that coworker A was raving about the pasta and telling everyone Supervisor B made it. I was so shocked. I asked coworker A what made her think Supervisor B made it and she was like, well it's pasta and she cooks a lot so yeah she probably made it. Baffled I told her I made it but she ended up laughing and saying no way I made it. I told her, why would I claim I made it if I didn't? That would be so weird for me to do and Supervisor B didn't even say she made it. She took a long look at me before realizing she fucked up with the completely wrong assumption. Looking back, maybe it was a subconscious racial stereotype she was projecting because the majority of the workforce was white and I was one of the few Asians there. I never again brought another dish to share. I ended up leaving the state entirely because I felt like despite my efforts I didn't fit in. ETA, I dealt with a boatload of microaggressions before making the decision to return back to my parents' state earlier than planned. Many of the microaggressions I didn't even identify until now because many of my friends at the time told me to just shake it off. Stories number 30. Am I the asshole for telling my GF to get rid of her creepy dummy? My 22M girlfriend, 21F, loves horror. She told me about 3 months ago that she read Goosebumps in elementary school and it sparked a lifelong interest in horror, and that when she was a kid, all she ever wanted for birthdays/Christmas was a replica of Slappy, a creepy ventriloquist dummy. I'm kind of a wimp about that stuff. And I think the dummy thing is frankly insane, but I like her enough to ignore it. Until last week, her birthday, when her mother bought her a Slappy replica. She's afraid of dummies, hence why she never got it for her as a kid. My GF was thrilled. You would have thought her mom had handed her the keys to a Tesla with the way she was acting. She was literally crying with happiness when she saw the expensive necklace I got her. She just said thank you. She's totally obsessed with the dummy. Her roommate thinks it's hilarious, and she carries it around her apartment like a teddy bear and even sleeps with it in her bed. I kind of snapped last night when I went over and she was holding the dummy. When I answered the door I told her it was creepy and she was being weird about it. And she needed to get rid of it. I'll admit I raised my voice a little bit. My GF started crying, and her roommate told me to leave. Roommate and friends have been texting me, saying I'm not supporting her and the dummy is harmless. GF herself hasn't reached out to me, so am I the asshole? The girlfriend's roommate finds the post and responds. Theorist_404. LMAO Matt, did you seriously not think either of us would see this post? You only learned about this subreddit because V showed you some of the posts here in an attempt to get you to engage in any of her interests. Makes sense that you only care about it when it could benefit you. Whether this is some passive-aggressive power move to get V to text you back or if you're just that desperate for someone to agree with you, but either way I don't think it's working out like you hoped. Certainly works well for me since now I don't have to worry about biting my tongue for her sake. Until last week, her birthday, when her mother bought her a Slappy replica. She's afraid of dummies. Hence why she never got it for her as a kid. My GF was thrilled. You would have thought her mom had handed her the keys to a Tesla with the way she was acting. She was literally crying with happiness when she saw the expensive necklace I got her. She just said thank you. Of course she was excited. It's something that she had wanted for years, and the fact that it came from her mom also made it special since she hates the thing and you can act all wounded about her not being as thrilled about the necklace. But we both know that you're intentionally leaving out the fact that V fucking told you previously that she doesn't like wearing jewelry. She doesn't like how a lot of it looks. She has sensory problems with it, and no one asked you to spend $1,000 on a necklace that looks like the Amazon logo for a girl you've been with for 7 months, dude. To be honest, it was just kind of weird. I kind of snapped last night when I went over and she was holding the dummy. When I answered the door I told her it was creepy and she was being weird about it, and she needed to get rid of it. I'll admit I raised my voice a little bit. A little bit. You blew up. The people from across the way came to check in on us after you left because of you yelling rather than talking to your girlfriend and expressing your reservations like a normal person. You bottled it up and then let it out on her with no warning. I know for sure that V is done with you, but honestly, for the sake of your future relationships, I hope that you grow the fuck up and learn to communicate without alerting everyone in the building of your issues. Also, get better taste. Goosebumps is awesome. YTA. Stories number 31. My 22F friends, 22F parents, 50s, are blaming me for the death of their daughter and they don't want me at her funeral. How do I talk to them? TLDR, my friend Rosie, 22F, recently committed suicide. Her boyfriend of 2 years, Darius, 22M, had been secretly filming them having sex and posting to porn sites. Her parents, 50s, think I'm a bad influence on her and gave her depression / made her kill herself. They don't want me at her funeral. Darius is still involved in her funeral. Rosie and I grew up together since kindergarten in a conservative area, and she has pretty conservative parents. Rosie was very introverted when I met her. It took weeks for her to talk to me in a normal volume. In contrast, I was a very loud and outspoken child. And over the years it rubbed off on her. Her parents are very nice people and have never said it to my face, but I know they thought / think I'm a bad influence on her. We were in the same school until we were around 14, when she moved away and we lost contact for a while. Neither of us had smartphones back then. We would email every month or so, but she had very limited computer time as well. When we were 18, we got into the same college and reconnected. Although we don't see each other often because her studies are very demanding, we weren't as close as before, but we still talked a couple of times a month. I still considered her an important friend. 2 years ago, she got her first boyfriend, Darius, and it was obvious she had never been happier. I had never met him in person but have only heard good things from her. Her family knows about him and approves of their relationship. But around 2 months ago, she found out that he had been secretly filming their sexual activities and posting it on porn sites. He did not censor her face, and he had amassed a not insignificant number of followers from these videos. She was mortified and heartbroken but did not want any of their mutual friends knowing, for fear that people IRL could potentially search and see those videos. Since their social circles are very intertwined, she had no one to confide in, and I was one of the few people who knew. She stressed that her parents could not find out. They were under the assumption that both her and Darius were Christians and were saving themselves for marriage, and if they did, they would likely cut her off financially. Her mutual friends with Darius did not know what happened, just that she dumped him and it didn't work out. She was very depressed and suicidal afterwards, and having dealt with depression and suicidal thoughts myself, I took her out almost daily to check on her and so that she could have someone to vent to. Her other friends noticed she was down, but she attributed it to dealing with the breakup and the stress of impending exams. I don't know what the exams are supposed to be called in English, but it's something like the bar exam for lawyers. It's a big deal. The day she died, I went to pick her up from her dorm for dinner, but she didn't answer her phone or the door. She lives in a single room. I don't want to go into the details, but I was the one who found her. She didn't even leave a note. I had to call her parents and tell them about it when they came. Her mom started shouting that I was a bad influence, that I gave her depression, and implied that I drove her to kill herself. I heard through the grapevine that Darius told her parents they were only on a break and were working things out. And he has been comforting her parents and helping organize her funeral / memorial. I am disgusted. I want to tell her parents, but I don't want to tarnish Rosie's memory. I also don't think her parents will believe me. I am not invited to her funeral and I am wondering if I should go anyways. I want to see her one last time, but I'm afraid I might cause a scene if I go. I also haven't cried once since the incident. I think I may still be in shock. I am waiting for the grief to hit me, but it still hasn't yet. I feel like I'm supposed to be traumatized, but all I feel is numb. I don't know if this is the right sub for this. I usually read stories like this in BoRU, never expected to be the one posting, but I'm looking for advice on whether to go to the funeral, whether to approach her parents or confront Darius, and if so, how. And I guess just how to navigate this whole situation emotionally. Please let me know if this is the wrong sub to post in and I will post elsewhere. And I know Reddit is the first to suggest therapy. I'm on it. I can't afford individual therapy, but I'm on a wait list through my university's mental health program. I don't have an exact timeline for when I expect to be seen yet. Edit. I tried replying to all the comments but got a bit overwhelmed. Thank you all for the advice and hugs. I want to clarify a few things and share what I've decided so far. Thanks to all your help. Rosie deleted all the videos she could find when she found out, and we talked mostly in person. I have some texts from her saying how betrayed she felt and how exhausting it was keeping up appearances and pretending to be fine, but nothing concrete. I have decided not to go to the funeral. I want to respect her parents' wishes and it probably wouldn't end well anyways. I'm working on finding out who else Rosie told. She said she only told 2 other high school friends. I did some IG sleuthing and I believe I found one of them. I sent a message asking to talk about Rosie, but she hasn't responded yet. After the funeral, I want to tell Rosie's parents part of the truth so they can have some closure and kick Darius out of their lives. I want to punch his face in. Seriously, I hope to enlist the help of Rosie's other friends who have more credibility with her parents so far. I'm thinking of telling them that Darius filmed her in the shower without her consent and posted them, that way it's 90% the truth, and I wouldn't have to reveal that they had sex. I will leave the decision to pursue things legally up to them. I will still try to reply to comments, but I need a small break for now. Talking about this is pretty mentally draining. Thank you all again. Update, 1 month later. Hey, just wanted to write down my thoughts and update anyone who was wondering about how things went after Rosie's funeral. Some info that is relevant to this update. Rosie and I grew up in religious families but both reconverted around high school. She wasn't religious for the duration of her relationship with Darius, but her parents believed she was still Christian. I know firsthand how damaging purity culture can be, and that was why Rosie did not want people, and her parents in particular, finding out about her having had sex, even if it seems normal for most college students. Also, I said in my last post I was very loud as a child. That was true. I was feisty and kinda obnoxious, but my personality did a 180 in high school when I got diagnosed with depression and anxiety. Now I am introverted and do not have many close friends. Update. TLDR, Darius is under investigation by the school and by law enforcement. I reached out to Rosie's high school friend Maggie, who I believe she also confided in about the Darius incident. Rosie had also told Sophie, another high school friend. The three of us swapped stories and ended up reaching out to Gwen, Rosie's best friend in college. Gwen was doing an exchange program overseas at the time of Rosie's death, and she had no idea all this had been going on. Rosie had been telling her everything was fine and that she broke up with Darius but didn't want to talk about it, and that it was mutual. We decided to tell Rosie's parents an abridged version of the truth. We told them she was filmed in the shower, instead of during sex, because we felt that where we go from here is ultimately their decision and we shouldn't make it for them. Gwen is on good terms with her parents and met with them to tell them in person. Thankfully, they believed her right away. With Rosie's parents' blessing, Gwen blew up all of their group chats telling people what Darius had done. She also spread the abridged version, within a couple hours. Darius's ex Nora, 21F, from about 3 years ago reached out to Gwen to say that she had also been filmed without consent and was too scared to say anything before Nora made an official statement with our school, and the school is investigating Darius. Nora and Rosie's parents have also went to the police. Nora had more solid evidence against Darius, so hopefully they will convict him. Unfortunately, this meant we had to come clean about what Darius had actually filmed. Rosie's parents weren't as mad as I feared and didn't hold our abridging the truth against us. There's no verdict as of now. The legal system works surprisingly slowly, and personally, I suspect Darius will get at most a slap on the wrist because his parents are well off and well connected. On the bright side, his social reputation is completely ruined. Most people trusted Gwen and Nora's statements and gave Darius hell. He took a leave of absence from the school and he will likely have to go to college overseas if he ever wants to graduate, because everyone in their major knows about it now. Some alumni from their field even caught wind and got involved. It's really very chaotic. I've asked Gwen not to involve me in any of this, besides giving the police any evidence I have and maybe being called to witness, of course, because my mental health has taken a huge hit from all of this and I don't have the energy to keep up with all the details. I have asked her to give me any significant updates though. Personally, I'm doing as well as one can after all this, which is to say I'm struggling, but hanging in there, and depressed but not suicidal. Thank you for all your condolences in the last post. A few short personal updates from me. Rosie's parents, after Gwen told them, they reached out to me and asked to apologize in person. I didn't want to see them, so we agreed to a phone call instead. They apologized profusely for lashing out at me. I forgave them. They didn't know what was going on. I was hurt, but they had just lost their daughter and were understandably very emotional. I probably won't have much to do with her parents going forward. I didn't see them very much before, but I am glad to have resolved this misunderstanding. The funeral/memorial. Gwen was not able to sit down with Rosie's parents until after the funeral. She also had to miss it because she was still overseas at the time. We waited until she came back, so sadly I missed it. Rosie was cremated, and her parents gave us, Gwen, some of the ashes. Gwen took Maggie, Sophie, and I to her and Rosie's favorite spot on campus, and we set up a picnic there. We spread some of her ashes there, had a moment of silence, and started swapping stories about Rosie and her life. I had my first real cry after Rosie left, maybe 3 weeks after her death. It was very cathartic and hopefully the first step to healing. Therapy. I told my parents about everything and they helped me find a therapist with a shorter wait list than the ones in school. I did an intake session, and I can expect to be seen in as little as 2 weeks with a therapist that specializes in grief counseling. In the meantime, I went to some support groups with Maggie, Sophie, and Gwen. I personally don't think it worked for me, because every time I talk about it it's like reliving the whole experience for me. so I will stick to therapy. Sophie and Maggie are still going to sessions. What next? My semester is almost over, so I'm trying to tough it out until then. I've told professors in my department about Rosie, they've heard about what happened, and they've been really kind, and I've been given extensions on most of the work I missed. I'm not sure if I will be going back to school next semester or if I'm taking a break to recover mentally from all this. Maggie, Sophie, Gwen, and I have bonded over the shared trauma. Rosie had a pretty consistent taste in friends, lol. We will be keeping in touch and leaning on each other. That's about it from me. Thank you. If you've read this far, typing this out helped. Edit. I was feeling bummed about the whole thing, so I typed this out and ended up taking a long depression nap. Thanks for the comments, I will try to get to all of them now. Stories number 32. My sister-in-law pranked me by giving me alcohol knowing I don't drink. I feel like I'm spiraling about it. 29F, don't drink alcohol. The short answer to the reason for this is I grew with two highly abusive alcoholic parents. It took me a lot of self-work and therapy to even be able to be in the same room as people that are drinking. When I meet new people, I just politely turn down drinks by saying something along the lines of, I don't drink. There has obviously been some instances where people ask me why, but I never go into the traumatic details. I've never had anyone push it onto me or anything. That's what makes what happened last weekend so bizarre. On the second Saturday of every month, my husband, 30M, and his sister, 32F, throw a cookout or something along the lines for all of their childhood friends. I've always thought it was really cool that they stayed close with so many people since I myself moved away from home and only stay in contact with one friend from school I've been attending these hangouts ever since my husband and I started dating. There's never been any issues. I get along well with his friends and his sister. Last Saturday, my husband took my 11-year-old little brother out of town for a dad/son day. We're his legal guardians. I've had custody of him since I was 20, so I went to the cookout alone this time. I've done this a couple times before, it's always been fine. So, my SAL handed out the usual mimosas. I asked for just orange juice. Like always, when I took a sip of the drink she handed me, I immediately spit it out because I could taste champagne. I turned around to my SAL and said, "Oh, you must have given me your drink by mistake." When I turned, I noticed her and two of her friends laughing. I was so confused. I asked what was going on and my SAL said through her giggles, "We thought it would be funny to see how you react to alcohol since we've never seen you drink it before. You should have seen your face." I was honestly just so shocked by that. My only response was, "What the hell?" As they continued laughing, I just told them I was leaving. I honestly don't even remember that drive home because I was trying to keep myself from having a panic attack when I finally got home. I just broke down crying. My husband and brother got home shortly after that and I couldn't hide how I was feeling even if I wanted to. My husband immediately asked me what was wrong and I just broke down again. I hate that my brother had to see me cry. I try to keep our house as happy and safe as possible after I put on a movie for my brother. I explained what happened to my husband. He was so mad. I've never seen him like that before. He told me to go relax with my brother and he was gonna sort everything out. I could hear him yelling at his sister on the phone and after almost an hour, he came and sat with us and told me we wouldn't be seeing her again. The next day, we told my mother and father-in-law. I've always been really close with them, so I wanted to confide in them, but I was obviously scared because that's their daughter and I didn't want to talk bad about her to them. To my surprise, they were absolutely mortified and so apologetic on behalf of their daughter. I'm so glad because my little brother adores them. It would have been devastating if our relationship with them suffered because of this. So yeah, this past week has been so weird. I feel weirdly betrayed. I hate that my SIL and her friends used me as some sort of entertainment for the day. I know that they don't know the trauma this triggered inside of me. But I'm just so confused on why they thought that was an okay thing to do. I also feel guilty because I don't want my husband to stop going to the cookouts and lose his time with his friends, and I don't want him and his sister to never see each other again because of me. My husband is amazing and has assured me it wouldn't be my fault if they never speak again. It's just hard not to feel that way. Don't worry though, I've had a lot of emergency therapy sessions this week and I know I'll be okay. It was just such a bizarre thing to experience. It seems like such a small, inconsequential thing to have happened to me, but it's been a crash course on trauma, triggers, PTSD, etc. Typing it out has been so helpful. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. Update. Thank you to everyone that left me kind comments and messages on my previous post. I'll just get right into the update. A lot of you guessed right, this isn't the first time my SIL has done something like this. She is definitely what some would consider a mean girl. My husband and his parents have had multiple falling outs with her over the years, but they've been on good terms recently until she pranked me. So yeah, I could see how my husband's immediate reaction to go no contact seemed like an overreaction, but he's dealt with a lot from her in the past. I don't want to give any specific examples because they're personal to my husband and his family. Hope you all understand. So here's what happened after my last post. After talking with my therapist and my husband, I decided I wanted to message my sil. I asked her if she wanted to get lunch and talk about what happened. I wanted to explain some of my past to her, my PTSD diagnosis, and why what she did affected me so much. I just wanted this to be over and for us to come to an understanding, but she never responded. A couple of my husband's friends that were at the cookout when the prank happened called us to check in on me. They said they had no idea my sil planned that and they never would have let it happen. That's probably why she didn't clue them in on the prank. They told me that after I left. They told her it wasn't cool. After a couple days I just gave up hope of her messaging me back and decided to start moving on. Yesterday, my sil blew up my husband's phone. She said some pretty awful things. To summarize, it was along the lines of, "It's not my fault your wife is a PSSY that is scared of champagne." She called me a bunch of names, from everything to BTCH, sent, etc. She said she never liked me and she wished my husband stayed with his high school girlfriend. They broke up when they were 18 BTW, my husband is 30 LOL. The worst thing she said was, my husband was just doing charity by taking in a couple of orphans, if you don't remember. I have custody of my 11-year-old brother and we don't have any contact with our parents because they're abusive. So, yeah, some pretty awful stuff. I was honestly just shocked. I thought we got along fine. We were never best friends or anything, but I had no idea she held this much animosity towards me. Maybe she's just embarrassed and lashing out because her parents or some of her friends berated her for it. I don't know. My husband sent just one message back to her saying he never wants to see or talk to her again and then blocked her and her husband's numbers. He told his parents what happened and they were furious too. I don't know what they said to her, but they're about as done as my husband. Since I've been in therapy and have support around me, her words didn't bother me much. I know she obviously has some problems to deal with and I'm just her latest target. The worst thing she did was bring my brother up. I'll never forgive her for that. He's not an orphan. He has two parents that love him and I'm not either. I have in-laws that love and support me. They always have my back, even when it comes to their own daughter. If I never see my sil again, I'd be fine with that. I truly hope one day she'll come to her senses and understand the way she treats people isn't right. We've decided to turn every second Saturday of the month into family day in place of the cookouts. I'm gonna be just fine. I'm already feeling miles better than I did writing my previous post. For everyone calling me dramatic, I'm genuinely glad you don't have experience with PTSD or triggers. I don't think it's funny to give someone alcohol without their consent even if you know the person drinks anyway. Again, thank you for all the kind words. I hope there will be no more updates, but if anything crazy happens, I'll let you know. Stories number 33. Am I the asshole for refusing to take care of MIL? I, 36F, have been a caregiver to my in-laws for the last 2 years. They acquired lots of debt from their 3 other children. Husband and I don't have any and never ask for things. His siblings were given cars. His parents took out 2 reverse mortgages on his older siblings, maxed credit cards and still have 14K in debt. I have been under a lot of stress taking my in-laws to appointments, FT caregiving, kids to school, house, grounds maintenance, etc. I normally get up at 3 a.m. to start the day. Recently, I finally snapped. I was just tired and needed a break. My husband's siblings have not helped with his parents at all, and my husband responded that day with, "Why are you always so angry?" I had stopped washing the dishes. My MIL was in earshot of this. I got up, got dressed, gave my kiddos a kiss each, told them I loved them and drove over to my friend's house for a good cry. Out of frustration she let me and allowed me to take the time to decompress and I went home. A few weeks later my husband came up to me and said his mother asked him when I left, "You don't think she's having an affair, do you?" This took me completely off guard. Here I am sacrificing my time to care for her and her husband, and that's the first thing that crosses her mind. Not the lack of support from her kids but that. I told my husband that I refused to help her and would no longer be her caregiver. The one thing I've never wavered on is my stance on being faithful. So, Wibta, in refusing to take care of my MIL after this. Edit. For those of you asking about my husband, he shot my MIL down real quick when she mentioned it. We have an open communication. Thus why he told me about his mother's response. He's on my side when it concerns his mother. We are currently talking about accommodations for my in-laws over coffee. As for my parents, my mother left my siblings after my father's passing of leukemia. My sister became their guardian. My father passed away when I was 17. He was taken care of by my siblings and myself until his passing. Backstory: they had to sell their home 2 years ago due to them not being financially in debt, over 30K in debt prior. I agreed they could stay at the time as I had a good relationship with my in-laws. Recently, my FIL was admitted into the hospital, then rehab. Now home with us. He is legally blind and has multiple health problems. I was a caregiver for many years, 10 plus, with dementia, so I don't mind my FIL in the least. He doesn't bother me and does his own thing. Stories number 34. I know I'm psycho revenge and zero regrets. I was with my ex for 7 years. For 7 years I learnt his language, his culture, his religion, and I went above and beyond for everything related to his family. I was the main earner, so I had no problem paying the rent, helping his family financially during the pandemic, and co-signing for his car, etc. Because his credit was terrible, I was completely in love with him and I could not have done more to be a perfect girlfriend. I even learnt to fucking cook. Main earner and home-cooked meals. His mother moved in with us and he worked long hours, so I thought, so I was often left with her because she was new to the area and knew no one, and again, emotionally and financially I did everything for her as well as everything for her dickhead son. With his new car, that he had because of me, he wanted to go on a road trip around the country. He had never traveled much and I couldn't get the time off approved from work, so he went alone. On my birthday, he worked overtime. Christmas Day he had to work. One of his colleagues often stalked my Instagram and he told me he hardly knew her, she was just a nosy kid. My instincts told me that didn't sound right, so I spent 6 months paranoid with him, telling me I was crazy and jealous and that I needed therapy. Then his insults got worse and then the physical abuse started. My friend was aware of my suspicions and she was keeping an eye on this girl's posts for me. Boxing Day arrived and I was absolutely miserable after spending yet another holiday alone with his mother. My family live in a different state, and my friend sent me a screenshot of this girl's story, and in the background I could see his car. I confronted him and found out that they had been together for almost a year. She had known about me the entire time and didn't care. They went on holiday together. The money I gave him for various fines, clothes, random shit he was giving to her, his mother had known and had met her several times. He was never working long hours or overtime. He had been fired 3 months earlier, and all those long days he was working and I was with his mother. He was actually with his other girlfriend. This is where I'm an I saw red. When I left, I took his car keys, his motorbike keys, his Xbox, his games, all his ID, his comic collection, worth a lot, his clothes, every light bulb, every shoe, every pan, every remote control, every pair of jeans and every cable in the house. Some of those things I bought, some of them I didn't. When he was calling me afterwards begging me to go back to him and to tell him where his things were, I could only reply that I've got no idea what he's talking about. He's going crazy and he should consider therapy, exactly like he always told me. About a month later in a nightclub I bumped into some of his friends. That night I slept with his childhood best friend. A couple of months later I bumped into his other girlfriend. She actually tried to be nice to me and she seemed extremely interested in what I was doing, how I was doing. Obviously I had blocked them both, but I was still obsessing over them on my friend's account, so I knew they had stayed together. As subtle as possible I said that I was doing great. We had been in therapy and we were working it out. I couldn't stay long though because I was late to meet and I left before she could reply. She thought he was now cheating on her with me, and from a bit of online stalking, I knew they had split up a couple of days later. He's now single, comic bookless, with no clothes, no way of cooking, no income, with friends he can't trust, living in the dark and with no way of proving who he is. If you're going to reply with a negative opinion, then don't bother. Like I said in the beginning, I have zero regrets. Stories number 35. I shared my fries with a couple I don't know that had a child. I was at a brunch place I frequent earlier today. After I ordered, there was a couple behind me with a child, I would guess around 1 or 2 years old. After I ordered my food, they ordered a single waffle meal that they would get for free because it was one of their birthdays and nothing else for their whole family. When I received my food, I got my entree with some fries, except the restaurant made me a huge pile of fries, way more than I could ever eat on my own. I walked over and talked to them. Let them know I overheard it was one of their birthdays, it was the mother, and asked if they would like some of my fries because it was far more than I needed. The mom responded that she would actually love that I grabbed a to-go container and put in most of the fries so they could have them. The child especially was loving them. They were quite good, and seeing the family enjoy them made me so happy. I honestly wish I had done more for them, but it was such a lovely interaction. Stories number 36. My GF cried because I said I wanted to sleep on the couch. So, last week I caught a cold, and thanks to my asthma, it's been dragging on. The cold itself is mostly gone now, but getting rid of all the leftover crap is always a pain. I've been coughing a lot, and if I try to lie down to sleep, I end up triggering an asthma attack, so my only option is to sleep sitting up. Tonight, after we finished watching a movie and were getting ready for bed, I told my partner I'd be sleeping on the couch again. I told her she should go upstairs and sleep in our bed because I was pretty sure she didn't want to deal with sleeping sitting up. She agreed that I was right. We hugged for a while since we were both feeling a bit sad about not being able to sleep together that night. During the hug, I joked, "If you start crying, I'm going to laugh. She looked at me with tears already on her face and said, too late. We both ended up laughing at her crying. It's moments like this that remind me how nice it is to be loved so much. Stories number 37. Am I the asshole here for reporting my mother to CPS, and reporting my stepdad for theft? Update. Update. I cancelled the internet as it was in my name. My mother called my father today, and asked to speak to me. She has been begging my father to convince me to come back home. My father told her off for being a shitty mother. I told her that I want coming back. She is also angry that I cancelled the internet. She was also begging me for more money. I told her no. My mother's side of the family called me an ungrateful daughter and that I should be blessed. My mother's only life. I am NC with most of my mom's family for a reason. My other post is down here for anyone to read in case of confusion. I-18, graduated high school last year. I have a good job now as a CNA. I graduated high school early at age 17. I was living with my mother until this situation yesterday. I am now staying with my real dad until I am able to move into my new apartment. The apartment isn't available until December 21st of 2024. I have 4 siblings who are 15, 13, 11, and 9. My mother married my stepfather. Then I was 1. My younger siblings are from her and her stepfather's relationship. My mother is a neglectful mom. She allows her husband to mistreat me. Her husband has hit me, spat on me, shoved me, and stolen from me time and time again. The rules in the house are that I pay $400 a month in rent. For a small bedroom I have to buy and eat my own food. I have to pay the internet bill, which is $100 even though I pay rent. I am not allowed to lock my doors. I'm not allowed to lock the door in the bathroom. I'm not allowed to use the internet after 6 p.m., even though IT's in my name. And I pay the bill. I've been respecting their rules recently. I bought a new computer. I am containing my studies. I am starting school for medication aid. When I finish school I'll have a medication aid certification, on top of the CNA license I have, after medication aid courses are complete for me. I am going to take phlebotomy. The laptop I bought was $350, and that was because it was on sale. Yesterday my stepfather demanded more money from me after I paid all the bills required of me. He is a drunk, he has a drinking problem, and my mother enables him. They neglect the kids they have. They always go out to eat, drink. And my mother always has her nails and hair done but doesn't have the money to take care of her kids. As a result I've been taking care of them. I told him that I wasn't giving him any more money. This was early yesterday morning. I went to work and came back later in the day. I went into my room and noticed my door was open, and my room got trashed. My laptop was gone. I asked my siblings if they had seen my laptop. They said no. I went upstairs and asked my mother if she'd seen it. She said, well, stepdad's name, sold it to the pawn shop because he needed money for household expenses. At this point I was livid because I needed that laptop for school. I said, I paid all of my required expenses for the house. He had no right to take that laptop that I had. Basically, she said that it's their house, their rules, and that if I didn't like it I could leave. I called my father and asked him if I could stay with him until December 21st. My dad, being the rock star he is, let me stay with him. He's not charging me rent or utilities. Early in the morning today I went down to the magistrate to press charges. I reported him to the police for his past violent behavior, and for the theft I blocked my mother and stepfather on everything. I reported my mother and stepfather to CPS for neglect and to report a dangerous environment. A few hours after, my mother called my dad furious. She said, she reported my husband for simply needing money. The police came to our house and arrested him. The area I live in, my country, they take theft or any crime for that matter very seriously. I'm surprised they arrested him so fast. I'm wondering if CPS is as quick. Also, for clarity, my mother was stupid enough to admit his crimes through text messages. I showed the police and magistrate the messages. Am I the asshole here? I feel bad for my siblings. I don't want them to go to foster care, but at the same time they live in a dangerous environment. Stories number 38. My 27F, fiancé's 29M, mother gave me abortion pills as an early Christmas present. How on earth do I navigate this situation? I typed the title and proceeded to blank stare at my phone because I can't even process how and why this happened. We were having a sort of an early holiday gathering hosted at his parents' house. It wasn't a small gathering either, and not everyone there knows we're expecting except his brother. Mother and father right before got ready to leave she gave me a small gift box which I initially thought was jewelry and told me to tell her or my fiancé what I think of it. All of this kind of happened in a rush and there wasn't even a gift exchange between everybody because it wasn't that kind of a party, but everyone thought she's being sweet to me because we're getting engaged soon. I was honestly tired and opened the gift at home, which is where I saw this wicked woman gave me pills, mifepristone and misoprostol, which are used for medical abortion. I understand she wasn't too happy about the news and obviously doesn't like me for fuck knows what reason, but kept it civil, so did I, but reaching this level. I genuinely don't know why she doesn't like me when the rest of the family is completely fine with me. I assume it's because of either my ethnicity or she has a superiority complex and believes I'm not good enough for her son because he graduated from a very prestigious university and has been financially privileged his entire life while I haven't been, even though now I earn my own money and we are pretty much equal. I simply don't know. I obviously told him and showed him, and he saw how visibly upset I am, comforted me and said what she does/says to me doesn't reflect my worth and will talk to her. I don't understand why he doesn't do something about it immediately. It has been almost 24 hours. We are happy about this pregnancy, and even though it wasn't exactly planned, it was welcome if it happened, and that is something him and I have discussed over a year ago. TLDR, at a holiday gathering at my fiancé's parents' house, his mom gave me a small gift box. I thought it was jewelry, but when I opened it at home, it was abortion pills, mifepristone and misoprostol. She knows we're expecting and happy about it, but clearly doesn't approve. I have no idea why she dislikes me enough to pull something like this. I told my fiancé, and while he comforted me and said he'll talk to her, I'm upset he hasn't addressed it immediately and is waiting apparently for the right moment. Edit to those wondering how she could have gotten abortion pills without being pregnant. They can be ordered online and delivered discreetly. You don't have to go to a clinic, or she could have paid someone to get them. Either way, they are accessible, and honestly, I don't give a shit how she acquired them. It's what she did with them. Stories number 39. Am I the asshole for kicking him out a few weeks before Christmas? Update: he's gone. I've told him to leave, told him I don't ever wish to see him again, that he's on his own. For those saying it can't be real, I wish that was the case. I didn't include everything as to not make this post huge, but he was abusive, in many ways, psychically, emotionally. He would use my postnatal depression, stating he would tell people I am mentally unstable. He even tried to contact my DR saying I was being mentally unstable. The last time I tried to get rid of him, he would also #PE me in my sleep, due to the medication I was on, which he has admitted to an email form. This will all be going to my local police station tomorrow, while the children are at school. Thank you to all the kind comments. I've been with my partner for 9 years, and during that time, he has never paid a single bill or household expense. He contributes nothing financially, emotionally, or practically to our household. I pay for everything: the house, which is solely in my name, the bills, the car he drives, including insurance and tax, and every single thing our children need. He doesn't parent or help with childcare in any way. Instead, he argues with our kids like they're grown men in a pub. His behavior is stressful and miserable for everyone in the house. He's selfish, constantly plays the victim, and is only interested in himself. He works but keeps his wages entirely for himself. Over the years, he's never bought a birthday or Christmas present for anyone, not even a card. Every time I try to address these issues, he promises to change, but nothing ever improves. When I've tried to end things before, he plays the victim, telling friends and family that he has nowhere to go and doesn't understand why I'm upset. This makes it incredibly hard to follow through because people start pressuring me to take him back. But I'm done. I can't waste another year of my life living in this hell. I know being a single mother would be easier than staying with someone who contributes nothing and makes our home so unhappy. With Christmas approaching, I feel guilty about the timing, but I also feel like I've given him countless chances. So, am I the asshole for finally kicking him out just before the holidays? Stories number 40. Am I the asshole for how I handled my ex cheating? I, 29M, was engaged to my ex, 26F. She is in grad school working on a master's. We had a shared apartment, but in June, I got a great job about 2 hours away from her school in my hometown. I have since bought a house and she was supposed to move in at the beginning of January. The lease in the apartment we used to share ends at the end of this month. In September, I started to notice her being distant with me. I thought nothing of it. There was a new guy in the program she started mentioning. I thought nothing of it. Well, a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving I got pretty irrefutable proof she was cheating with this guy. I was more angry than I can put into words. Originally, she was planning on coming to see me the weekend before Thanksgiving. Before she went home for the week, I made up some excuses for why she couldn't come, so I did not see her. While she was gone for Thanksgiving, I took what stuff I had of hers at the house, and took it to the apartment. I wrote a detailed letter about the cheating, how I felt, and letting her know I was breaking up with her. I also wrote her a check for my part of the rent for December, but told her she needs to make arrangements for the other things. I paid her car insurance, health insurance, and cell phone each month. I also went about changing passwords, locks, passcodes, etc., so she could not access anything of mine. She got back to the apartment on November 30th and saw the letter. She lost it. She called repeatedly. I did not answer. In the early morning hours of December 1st, she showed up to the house trying to get in. She couldn't. My friends started calling me. I told them I was fine, but that I would not see or speak to her under any circumstances. I told them to ask her to leave. Eventually she did. I still have not spoken to her and don't plan to ever. Some of my friends are saying I am an AH. Apparently her account is overdrawn because I usually put money in her account at the beginning of the month to cover her bills, but since I didn't, money came out and caused her to have a negative balance. She has absolutely nowhere to stay once the lease ends at the end of the month, and she just wants to talk to me for closure. I refuse. They ask if I could at least give her some money to get her account balance back up, but I refuse. Stories number 41. Am I the asshole for not being friendly with my ex's affair partner / now wife? I, 39F, have 2 kids with my ex-husband, 45M, who cheated on me. I found out about the almost 1-year-long affair in April of 2018. He was never really apologetic but played the part of pretending to try to reconcile for an extra 6 months. During that time, he continued his affair with his coworker who was also married. I started suspecting there was something going on in January 2018 when I noticed my ex was hiding his phone, going to work early, coming home late, and talking about this woman a lot. He claimed they were good friends from work and they were in a workout group together. When I asked him about the relationship, he told me I was paranoid, crazy, etc. etc. The 2 of them also planned family outings for us. We got our kids together to have a picnic in the park. We went to a hockey game together. She invited me to a Saved by the Bell trivia night. The 2 of them worked really hard to make our families seem like family friends, but I never liked her the first time I met her. My ex asked what I thought and I said something to the effect of, "She talks a lot." We got divorced in 2019. I had to do all the work in getting a lawyer, filing the papers, and finalizing the decree. He refused to do anything. He didn't fight me on much, which is good, but only because he's incredibly lazy, and fighting would have been effort during the separation. He lived in an extended stay motel and didn't have a single overnight with the kids unless I offered to leave my home and sleep elsewhere. I was doing 100% of work after he walked out. Once we sold our marital home and finalized the divorce, he started keeping the kids on his regularly scheduled visitation, which ended up being roughly 60/40ths. During the reconciliation period, separation, and divorce, she would send me long messages about how sorry she was and how she was a really good person, blah, blah, blah. I will be honest, I was not very nice to her in my responses. She blamed me for people at work finding out about the affair and accusing her of sleeping her way to a promotion. He was the hiring manager. She texted me, emailed my personal email, and emailed my work email. She was everywhere and it was annoying. The ex and his AP got married and I am remarried. We've moved past the whole affair, but I don't like either one of them. I talked to my ex about the kids and that's it. I don't speak to her at all. She's been showing up to more things and trying to start conversations. She came to my daughter's party and insisted on helping with cleanup and trying to talk to me, but I don't want her help. The way I see it, her and the ex can come to the party and interact with the kids, but I don't want to have to deal with them. I had to drop something for my son off at the ex's and she was down the street walking her dog. I said, "I'm just dropping this off on the porch," and walked to the door. I heard her and the person walking with her snickering about me when I got back in my car. The kids have thanked me for being friends with their dad, which makes me laugh because I think he's one of the biggest pieces of shit to ever walk this earth. But I know I'm not overtly rude, just standoffish. But watching those 2 women mutter about how rude I am bothered me, as long as I'm not affecting the kids' relationship with their dad. I don't think I should be required to chat it up with 2 people who made my life a living hell. But is that the expectation? Am I the asshole for not speaking to the affair partner and trying to be her friend? Stories number 42. Do I throw my ex under the bus? I am going through a nasty divorce. For 2 years, my ex cheated on me, lied to me and was abusive. In prepping for court, I found, on old computers, a history of purchasing escorts, a whole secret life online including singles websites, and several emails of him backstabbing coworkers, throwing them under the bus, and 2-faced business dealings. I also know he's cheating on his current girlfriend. When things started getting rolling in court, he realized he was going to have to pay me support, so he told my teenagers lies about me and also told them if he had to pay me they would never do their favorite activities again. They have since told me they never want to see me again and they refuse to talk to me. I have the ability to let loose the information and destroy him. I'm not a retaliating individual, but I'm tempted to allow the world to see him for who he truly is, if not to just clear my name with my children, though I don't think they will ever talk to me again either way. Thoughts? Stories number 43. Tired of my hobby being sexualized. Alright, I'm a 36F, single, and dating I get the whole, like the movie Ghost, so often it's starting to drive me mad. I've been hanging out with this one guy lately who has shown great interest in my pottery hobby, and I invited him down to the studio to have a glass of wine with me, and he says, like the movie Ghost. I replied with a smart-ass remark about how it's more like an episode of Sesame Street where the teacher has to make sure the students don't eat the clay. I feel bad that I said that to him, but I'm over my hobby being sexualized. We haven't spoken since I made my crappy remark and I feel like I should apologize, but come on. Sure, maybe you can sexualize it once we are dating longer, but we've been on 2 dates. Stories number 44. Do you consider religious people dumb? Yesterday I was on the metro and I overheard like 6 old men talking about how Europe abandoned Christianism and the EU leaders should get hit by a lightning sent by God. Thought that was Zeus, but okay, hearing that I couldn't imagine them being nearly considerable as intelligent or smart now. I know there are religious people that are indeed intelligent, but doesn't the premise that they fully believe in some sort of divine judger and creator etc. kinda ruins it for you? Now, I am respectful with any religious person and never confronted anyone about it, as I see it as a way to cope and possibly live a better life, but at the end of the day it's all I can see it as, a way to cope about death and to have some moral standards, which I think it's sad. Having to be scared to be going to hell in order to act as a decent person. Still, every time I watch Hitchens, or Dawkins, as much as I fully agree with them, I could never get myself to be as explicit as them in being against religion, since I respect the historical impact it had and can't imagine a world without it. Stories number 45. Am I the asshole for suggesting my brother reevaluate his marriage? To stay anonymous, I've changed names and minor details. This post focuses on one family trip to see our favorite football team, though there's more to the backstory. For context, my family includes me, 30, oldest sibling, my parents, and my siblings, David, brother, late 30s, Greg, brother, early 20s, and Rachel, sister, early 20s, Greg's wife, Beth, and their infant son also joined, though she and the baby weren't originally part of the plan. The trip was supposed to be just family. As it was a rare chance for us to all be together, Beth insisted on coming, saying she couldn't be without Greg for more than a day, so Greg changed the Airbnb last minute to accommodate her. We all arrived the night before the game and had a nice evening. On game day, we went to the stadium to tailgate and watch the game while Beth stayed back with the baby. She was watching her favorite team, they lost, and started texting Greg about how their baby had a diaper blowout and it was an emergency. Greg's phone died at the game. But before that, she had been accusing him of being a bad father for not being there. For context, Greg has stepped up as a father more than I ever thought he would. He's hands-on and attentive, and Beth's accusations were completely unfair. After the game, on the drive back to the Airbnb, Greg charged his phone and saw 50+ texts from Beth. She had also been texting David, threatening divorce if Greg didn't answer when he called her. She hung up and told him to read the texts. Despite knowing he was driving, she kept calling and texting, ranting about their team's loss, the diaper incident, and how awful her day had been. At one point, she FaceTimed him, handed the baby the phone, and said, "Here, deal with this little shit because I can't." Greg tried to stay calm, explaining he was driving and would be back soon to help. She continued, and he eventually snapped, telling her they needed a private conversation because he wouldn't argue in front of family. He said, "You need to be a mother. You need to handle our child alone sometimes. Don't call something an emergency unless it is one. A diaper blowout isn't an emergency. Grow up, clean him up, and move on." I told Greg, I wouldn't want to be with someone who can't handle being a parent alone for a few hours. You let her go out with friends, but she can't handle one day without threatening divorce and calling you a bad father. You might need to rethink this marriage. I also think Beth invited David's wife, who declined, because she didn't trust herself to watch the baby alone. Since then, Greg has been distant. My siblings and parents think I was inappropriate, but I stand by my opinion. These behaviors existed before they got married, so my views haven't changed. For context, if needed, none of us drink alcohol. Am I the asshole? Stories number 46. Am I overreacting over a teacher clocking our periods? Before I begin, I want to mention that English isn't my first language, so I apologize if anything I write is unclear or causes misunderstanding. If it does, feel free to ask, and I'll explain better. For some context, I'm a 16-year-old girl, 16F, who recently discovered something concerning about my PE teacher. He's been keeping track of when the girls he teaches have their periods. I'm in my first year of high school, having recently moved to a new school. When I arrived, classmates, mostly older girls, warned me about our PE teacher, saying he gives off a weird vibe around students. At first, I didn't think much of it since he hadn't made any suggestive comments or acted inappropriately toward me. Sure, his behavior was a little odd at times, but nothing alarming, until now. Here's the situation: I have very irregular periods. Sometimes I'll go 3 months without having one, and other times I'll have 2 in a single month. I know it's unusual. I'm seeing a doctor to check if everything's okay. When I do get my period, it's often painful and heavy, sometimes causing nausea and vomiting, which means I can't participate in PE or other sports during those times. This month, I had 2 periods. The first time, I told my teacher I couldn't do class that day, and he seemed understanding. However, when my second period came and I told him again, he said it wasn't possible. He claimed it was just an excuse and explained that he knew because he had written down the date of my last period. I was surprised and brushed it off at first, thinking he might have explained himself poorly. I then tried to clarify by mentioning my irregular cycles, and he seemed to somewhat understand. However, I wanted to be sure I hadn't misheard him earlier, so I jokingly asked if he really kept track of our periods. To my shock, he admitted that he did, saying it helped him determine if students were being truthful or just making excuses. Hearing this left me feeling uncomfortable and confused. Is this normal? I come from a private school, so I'm not sure if this kind of thing happens in public schools. Maybe I'm overreacting, but it feels inappropriate to me. What's your opinion? Am I overthinking this, or is it something to be concerned about? Edit: to clarify something I didn't mention earlier, my unease about him isn't just based on rumors. I've personally experienced situations throughout this school year that made me uncomfortable. For example, whenever he explains a new exercise, he always chooses girls to demonstrate. It's true that the majority of the class are girls, but come on, you can always pick a guy. During activities like running, I caught him staring at girls' chests or asses, not in a way that seems related to checking our form or technique. Additionally, whenever a girl approaches him to talk, he frequently touches our shoulders or arms unnecessarily and without consent. It's not that hard to ask for permission before touching someone. Stories number 47. Am I the asshole for paying supporting my kid's sister but not my GF's kids? Throwaway: because my girlfriend knows my main I, 44M, have 2 kids, 18M and 16M, from a previous relationship. My ex has another kid, 14F. My sons have always been very loving and dotting big brothers to their sister. Their sister's dad died when she was 4. I am not her dad, but I felt for her. I grew up as the only kid of my parents' union with half siblings, and I was treated like an outsider. So, when he died, I stepped into a sort of uncle role for her. All 3 kids go to a rather expensive private school. I pay the tuition for all 3. I have been dating my GF, 37F, for 3 years. He has lived with me for the last year. She works at the school and has 2 kids there, 13F and 10M. The pay is terrible, but a perk is that she gets a pretty steep tuition discount, as do all employees. Her ex pays the remainder tuition, plus child support, for their kids. Well, her ex's business imploded a while back and he had a significant decrease in his income. They went to court and the court decreased his child support significantly. He also is no longer paying the remainder. This means my GF needs to make it up or kids go to public school. That isn't really possible for her. She asked me to help. I refuse. I have a strict budget I keep to every month. If this was a true emergency, I would help, but it isn't. She then said I could simply switch the money I pay for my ex's daughter to her kids and that would allow me to pay. I refuse to do that. She is staying with her parents and hasn't talked to me in a week. Update, 14 days later. Well, one of the comments on the original post really struck a nerve with me. It talked about how my GF's insistence that my kid's sister go to public school, but her kids cannot, really revealed her character. We have had some follow-up discussions. Basically, she insisted that my kid's sister isn't my family. So if anyone is going to benefit from my money, it should be my kids or potential stepkids. I told her that I think she is being harsh to a child, and that she can be so cavalier about a child who has only one parent makes me want to break up. So, I made the decision to break up. She is moving out in a month likely. Her kids will have to go public school in a different district because the few apartments in our district are way too expensive for her. She is pissed and asked me to reconsider multiple times. I think this is for the best. She asked if she could use my address so they could go to the local public school next semester. My understanding is that can potentially be considered fraud and land me in legal trouble. So I said, no. She says not only am I forcing her kids to change schools mid-school year, they will have to go to a school where they do not know any kids. They at least are friends with kids in the local public schools. Stories number 48. Why do boomers have such negative views of therapy? Obviously I've heard similar sentiments from boomer-aged people before, yet I was just shopping at a retail store. Employees were mostly women, plus one boomer dude, one millennial dude. One of the women is telling another woman something about her therapist and the boomer cuts in with, "Whoa, you just put that out there like it's nothing." Everyone turned to stare at him, and he was like, "So you don't care who knows you're crazy?" One of the other women says something like, "There's nothing wrong with therapy, it's a tool that helps a lot of people improve their life," and another said, "I'm in therapy too." The boomer starts backing away with his hands up. The one millennial dude is shooting daggers at him with his eyes, trying to warm him. Boomer still goes off, "Geez, sorry, just never realized I was coming into work with all the crazy women." Basically everyone just glared at him and the millennial dude makes eye contact with me and just shrugged helplessly. Anyway, guess old dude is destined for an HR meeting. Stories number 49. Love being a grown-up with plenty of food. Growing up, there were lots of kids and people at my house. Mexican pastries were not often purchased. On the days we did get to have some, we could only choose one. Everyone had to take a turn by age, oldest first as the second youngest. I rarely ate the ones I liked, plus, we had to finish the treat. Now, as a grown-up, I stopped at my favorite bakery and chose 3 pastries that I liked. I didn't know which one I wanted to eat that day. I took a slow delicious bite from each one and chose the one I liked the most. The other 2 were saved for the next 2 days. I loved seeing the pastries displayed in my kitchen with a bite taken by me. All of them were delicious because I chose them. It was especially fantastic to know I would eat only what I wanted, and if I didn't, I could simply pass on it. Stories number 50. Am I the asshole here for not letting my brother-in-law hunt on my land? My SIL and BL, wife's sister Ann and her husband, live with us out of necessity, and I told him he can't shoot any more deer on our property this year. BL, disabled, has killed 3 deer this year, all very young bucks, on my property. Prior to this hunting season I asked he not shoot more than 1 buck as I would like them to mature before harvesting. The first 2 deer he shot were button bucks, which I can understand being mistaken as does as BIL has very poor eyesight. The 3rd buck harvested was unmistakably a buck and he shot it knowingly. A blatant violation of my wishes. Fast forward, BAL invites his brother and nephew to hunt on our property without asking my wife or I. One day I walk out my front door and these 2 guys are just here sighting in their bows in my front yard. They didn't kill any deer. Thankfully my wife and I ask for the BIL to please ask permission prior to inviting people to hunt. BIL and SIL agree to this and ask if his other brother and nephew can hunt here on Thanksgiving. Reluctantly I agree but ask that they don't shoot any bucks. Also I say if they do shoot a buck there will be no more hunting. Anyhow the nephew shoots a buck. I am salty. A week later, after the 4th buck is killed, the BIL and I are talking and I remind him no more deer hunting. He replies, "But my brother is coming in January, we can shoot does right?" Me, "No frickin' way, you've lost your mind, you should have asked me prior to inviting them." Now my SIL says family comes before all and believes I am a selfish AH for saying no more hunting here. I say the BIL thinks he is running his own personal hunting lodge out of our house and he is being dang greedy. P.S. I have no problem killing a deer for meat, but 1 or 2 deer is more than enough for 2 people for a year. I only have 5 acres, so 4 deer is too dang many. IMHO, don't most people have rules for others hunting on their land? Genuinely curious. Are my rules unreasonable or are the in-laws just being self-serving? When I bought this house and accompanying land I wanted no deer hunting for 5 years but capitulated because the BIL is ill and may not make it much more than a few more years. I feel I have no obligation to allow everybody and their brother to fill their freezers with deer from our property. I am done with ingratitude and greed and nobody will hunt on my land again other than my wife, daughter, son or myself. Going forward I will only allow animals likely to die within a year will be harvested. I believe in harvesting only mature animals and only what one can consume, so let me have it. Am I the asshole here? TLTR, family wants to shoot all my deer and I say 1 or 2 per year is more than enough. Stories number 51. Boomer losing their mind at the gas station. I pulled into a pretty full station today. Also this was in Jersey so we don't pump our own gas. It's quite cold out and the attendant was running around taking care of everyone. This old man decided that he was more important than everybody else and proceeded to lay on his horn. The attendant went over and this guy is just barking orders about needing a receipt and that he's priority, then proceeds to tell the attendant that the car in front of him shouldn't get gas yet because he needs to get out. They needed to move out of his way because he's in a hurry and they should have waited their turn. The poor attendant walks over to the car in front to I guess try to appease the human I'm Guessing the car ignored the request, he then decided to continue to honk his horn again, then got out of the car and confronted the couple at the pump in front of him. They told him to fuck off and back out, which he eventually did. I'm watching all this like, is it really that urgent that you have to be this unkind? Stories number 52. Am I the asshole for refusing to pay for a house item my roommates bought without consulting me? I live with 3 roommates, and the other day, they all went out to the mall to hang out without even inviting me. I was left at home alone, and honestly, it made me feel kind of left out. Later, when they came back, they sent a message in our group chat saying they bought a flower vase for the house and wanted to split the cost 4 ways, including me. The thing is, I wasn't part of the decision, and they didn't even bother asking me if I was okay with it. It's only $3, so it's not about the money, but I feel like it's unfair since I wasn't included in any of this. I see them as friends, so it hurt that no one even thought to invite me or ask my opinion. Would I be the asshole if I refused to pay? Stories number 53. Do people like rough sex? I feel completely not normal. My partner describes me as very much in a container, like I only like certain things in the bedroom, and he feels very constrained and not satisfied. He's been waiting for me to blossom. Some positions feel too intense for me. I've been working with a pelvic physio because I was experiencing pain. Turns out my hips are mega tight and the muscle inside are also tight. He says he's barely rough with me and that I don't even know what rough is. I often have to stop or tell him to stop in certain positions if he's going too fast/hard. This frustrates him a lot. He says I need to either be quiet and take it, that it's okay to be a bit uncomfortable sometimes for the other's pleasure, or communicate, but when I communicate, it doesn't go well either. I try pleasuring him with blow jobs on days I don't want to, but he said they don't really satisfy him that much either. Am I being selfish? He doesn't understand that if I just take it, when it's uncomfortable it causes more pain the next day. That I'm thinking about just myself in that moment apparently. Being penetrated deep and fast feels very unsafe to me. Even though we have been together for over 4 years, I'm not sure how most people let go of control or let go enough to even enjoy that. I feel shitty that he's not satisfied. I'm glad he's communicated, but I don't think anyone should just take it. I'm not some sex doll. Stories number 54. I love my wife, but I had sex with her sister. Before passing judgment, read my entire story. I, 35M, was married to Lena, 34F, for a decade, and I wouldn't have believed you if you told me, all of those years ago, that I would one day sleep with her older sister, Riley, 40F, that I would one day marry Riley. We'll get to that. The nightmare began with the death of Lena, who I will forever call my true wife, from pancreatic cancer. And the second chapter of grief began on an evening, 2 weekends ago, when I asked, was she telling the truth? About what? Riley replied. From the front room of Macy Manor, I stood and watched the snowfall beyond the window, watched Whiteberry Black. Meanwhile, Riley was sitting in her father's old armchair, by the crackling fireplace, and nursing a tumbler of brandy in loose fingers, clearly, like me, reflecting on everything. When Mr. and Mrs. Macy died in 2005, Riley inherited that lavish Edwardian house and became Lena's guardian. It was shortly after this that Lena, my childhood friend, finally admitted the truth. Lena told me that the two of you could see the spirits of your parents, I finally answered. Riley stared vacantly at the opposite side of the room, and I followed her gaze. My eyes fell upon an empty armchair with a still shadow sitting upon it. Strangely, the fireplace's animated flames cast dancing patches of darkness across every other surface in the room. My late wife's sister finally whispered, a century ago, Ernest Macy built this home upon a dark hole in the ground. In his diary, he forbade descendants from ever entering the hole, for it took a terrible toll on him, a toll that, nevertheless, gifted the Macy family with the ability to see the specters of their lost loved ones. Of course, let's be honest, that gift will die with me. I'm the last of the Macy lineage, and I won't be having any children. Lena never mentioned a magical hole in the dirt, I said, trying to stifle a chuckle. Because you always wear that shit-eating grin on your face, Artie, Riley replied, smirking as she tapping the heel of her foot against a dusty, leather-bound book on the coffee table. This is Ernest's diary. I think that book's been sitting there since I first visited your home, I said. Anyway, I've always respected your family's beliefs, Riley, but I've never seen any evidence of ghosts in this house. Well, you're not a Macy, she replied. I nodded, pressing my palm against the outline of Lena's engagement band in my pocket. No, not quite. Riley continued looking at that unsettling armchair, empty save for the heavy shade upon it. Then she coldly said, Lena wants to show you, the best way she can show a non-Macy that she's here. Without even thinking, I immediately replied, I want to believe Lena, if you hear. The empty armchair interrupted me. It was flung upwards and flipped upside down, hurled against the white ceiling to which its base clung tightly, and I yelled, of course, as any rational person would. Veins protruded beneath my skin as I tightly clenched every muscle in my body. Only a second later, the paranormal chair fell and landed, kicking up a mound of dust in its overturned state on the floor. After an unknown length of silence, I croaked, I've felt her in this house ever since she passed. The dead never really leave this place, said Riley, so grief is different for a Macy. Even for you, Artie, you're as good as family. What if I actually had been a Macy? I asked, eyes welling. What if I'd married Lena and taken her name? She nodded. My mother married into the family, and she saw the faces of the dead. Then, without leaving an appropriate pause, I asked something horrific, we should marry you and me that way, I'll be able to see her too. I expected ridicule, or a scream of protest, once Riley realized I was telling the truth, but she seemed to immediately detect the sincerity of my tone. Perhaps the thought had already crossed her mind. Let's not go there, Artie, she warned. I turned to the overturned armchair, addressing the shadow I knew to be cast by my wife, Lena. It would only be a marriage on paper. I'm not refusing on her behalf, Riley explained, and you'd need to do more than legally change your surname. We would need to consummate the marriage, Artie. Oh, came my meek voice, followed by the flipped armchair's disapproving creak. Oh, Riley repeated, laughing, as in, oh, if only you could see the face your wife is pulling. I fell quiet after that, and my sister-in-law went up to bed a few minutes later. I, on the other hand, spent the rest of the night skim-reading Ernest's diary. Lena was reading alongside me, and I felt her excitement, which rivaled mine, as we read Ernest's section titled, The Plea of Two. A gust of wind rucked a chunk of the old, brown page, rucked the passage which read, to return a loved one's physical form, the ritual must be performed by two living members of the Macy family. However, I felt it in the air, felt that my wife wanted a second chance at life, and, had she not, I wouldn't have pushed it, wouldn't have woken Riley and explained the situation. At 4 a.m. she quarreled with Lena about the ethics of it all, not so much marrying and sleeping with her late sister's husband, but resurrecting the dead. Lena and I should have listened. But we didn't, and Riley was, after only 10 minutes of arguing, corrupted by that desire to end our collective grief. If we don't try, I'd always regret it. My jaw hung. Does that mean Vegas is the quick option? My sister-in-law interrupted, and we'll consummate the marriage briefly. No lights, no talking. I nodded, sobbing joyously as I eyeballed the shadowy corner of the bedroom in which I knew Lena lurked. And a few days later, once Riley and I had successfully obtained Estes, we flew out to Vegas, signed the deed, did the deed. That greatest shame of our lives unfolded in an unlit hotel room, for a little less than 10 seconds, and was followed by a long, silent flight back to England. A week after we'd hatched our plan, we returned to Macy Manor, drove along the driveway on a night darker, and snowier, than the formidable one on which we'd made this unnatural decision. All of that discomfort and regret washed away upon stepping across the threshold, however, because there she stood, blonde-haired, in her unmistakable blue dungaree. She was a spectral light, burning blindingly into my retinas, that watched me from the main staircase. We ran towards one another, sobbing and professing our love as we did, and those tears only flowed more heavily as our arms ran through one another, as we realized, of course, that we could not touch. Of course, I reminded myself of the only reason that Riley and I had done what we did. We were going to bring Lena back. The ghost of my wife stood in the front room's doorway as Riley and I, holding hands, followed the instructions detailed within Ernest's diary. Two Macy members reciting the plea of two, begging for a dark thing, which we did not understand, to return Lena to us in physical form, begging that dark hole in the basement, which we were forbidden from even looking upon. I wondered whether every single Macy family member had, in fact, obeyed Ernest's strict rule. Surely, in the space of a century, somebody else had been down there. I was wrenched from my thoughts by the bulky diary slamming shut, a force which rattled the very house itself. In response, Riley and I gasped, turned to the doorway, then gasped again. Lena's phantom form wasn't there. Then came, from the entryway, a creak. Without any sense of self-preservation, I tiptoed towards the lobby, peered around the doorframe, and whimpered soulfully as I saw the basement door standing ajar, a door I had never, in the 20 years of visiting Macy Manor, seen open. And through the slight gap, in the darkness of the basement staircase, there glowed a rather timid set of blue eyes that I would have recognized anywhere. They weren't translucent this time. "Lena!" I wailed, feeling twice as euphoric as I had during our first reunion. "Artie," Riley began as I rushed forwards, hints of uncertainty and fear in her raspy voice. I barely noticed anything other than the eyes of the woman I loved. I reached for the door handle with eager blindness, didn't even find it odd that Lena's blue eyes disappeared into the darkness as I threw the door open. I followed, bounced down wooden steps in that black, forbidden part of the manor, willfully ignored the stench of a smell that did not belong in the earthly realm. Riley was right, grief is different for a Macy. Moonlight, invited inside by an empty slit of a window frame, revealed a black hole in the very floor of the basement. An ancient wooden door lay open, suggesting that Ernest had kept the supernatural opening under lock and key, but I cared for none of that. The moonlight, most importantly, revealed Lena. All in that place was a dream, from my unthinking head to my light toes, for I was floating, perhaps literally, towards the physical embodiment of my wife. It was only as our lips met that the vision began to sour. There came a feeling that had been trying to bubble to the surface from the moment Riley and I had completed the plea of two. Terror. Warmth filled my mouth, a black warmth violating my senses, having circumvented my defenses, and when I opened my eyes, I screamed, a scream muffled by her mouth. I looked into eyes no longer blue, but black, a ravenous black that swallowed the irises, then the entirety of the eyes. Her muscular fingers dug deeply into my upper arms, preventing my escape, and then she began to step backwards, began to reverse into the hole, taking me with her. It had all been a lie. The plea of two was never going to bring anybody back. It brought something else out of the hole, and that made me fear what other lies the blackness had told Ernest Macy, what terrifying rituals he might have performed. There came footsteps down the stairs, and I saw Riley in the glossy reflection of the demon's black eyes. Saw her come so close to reaching me, before being tossed, like a ragdoll, against the far wall of the basement. The toes of my trainers start to slip into the unholy darkness, and I felt a chill beyond coldness, something that no human knows how to feel. I closed my eyes and prayed that I would meet an end. I had a feeling that surviving in that black place would be the worst nightmare imaginable. Whilst blind to the world, however, I was startled to feel that creature's lips and nails release my frail body, letting me fall backwards onto the basement floor, and I opened my eyes to see something horridly beautiful. White hands, stemming from a form that brightly illuminated the dingy basement, were knotted within the false Lena's hair, and those hands began to push the deceitful creature's head downwards, casting the creature back to the black world. I sobbed as the ghost of the true Lena, steel shackles binding her wrists and neck to the black realm below, revealed her form behind the creature. She was submerging into the darkness, into the nightmarish world which was claiming Lena's bound, ghostly form too. "I love you," she mouthed tearfully. I reached out helplessly as Lena's teary eyes slipped into the opening, following the thing she had vanquished. Then the wooden trapdoor swung closed. For days, I have felt a deeper grief than before, a grief worsened by my inability to move forwards. Riley had been right all along. I don't eat, I don't sleep. I sit in her front room, eyeing the many dead faces of the Macy family, but there is only one I hope to see, even if that hope rots my insides. If she doesn't walk through that door soon, I will find a way to bring her back. Stories number 55. My dog is a service dog. Years ago I worked at a Starbucks in a small mountain tourist town that caters to a lot of visitors from a big city. Customers were usually very nice, and I normally worked the closing shift, which was pretty uneventful, but then got asked to start working mornings. My first new shift, working the register. Someone came in with their small little posh dog, with nothing indicating it was a service animal or even pretending to be an ESA, ordered a cappuccino in a mug, then went to go sit down, expecting his coffee to be brought to him, not something we normally do. After the transaction, he left to go sit down, and when the next customer stepped up, they noticed he left his card in the reader. I tried getting his attention before he sat down, but he was studiously ignoring us, thinking he was above the people who worked there. Whatever. Once his drink was made, I brought it over to him with the card, and passively mentioned that we don't allow dogs inside the store unless they're service dogs. And we have a nice outdoor patio that they can sit at instead. While this dog was climbing unleashed all over our couches, it was a pretty cute and well-behaved dog at least. This man yells at me that his dog is a service dog. And he was a regular, and no one had ever told him he couldn't have his dog inside. It's posted on all entrances. I didn't care that much, and my shift leads wouldn't speak up anyways, so I dropped it. I'm not sure if it was because of that interaction or not, but I never saw him again after that, thank goodness, lol. Stories number 56. Am I the asshole if I give my partner this ultimatum? To start, my fiancé, 20, and I, 20, have been together for 4 years. We both come from military families, and he recently left for basic training a little over a month ago. This experience, among other reasons, has led us to decide to get married sooner rather than later despite some differences. We've always managed to work through them maturely. He will be home for Christmas, and we're considering tying the knot during that break, allowing me to move with him when he starts AIT, as his MOS permits. We've had many discussions about important topics such as finances, goals, religion, expectations, and political views, and I appreciate his hardworking, respectful, and positive nature. However, there's one significant issue that I'm struggling to come to terms with: his family. To provide some background, I come from a small family and have learned that those who mistreat you often continue to do so. This belief contributes to my feelings that he should distance himself from his family. My own experiences have shown me how problematic family dynamics can hinder the establishment of a healthy relationship. I don't want to find myself in a situation where my partner fails to stand up for us, as I have witnessed in my own family. The most pressing concern is that his father has been withdrawing money from my fiancé's bank account, over $500 since he left for basic training, including a recent $100 withdrawal just yesterday. His father has no permission to access this money, which is possible because he is a joint account holder from when my fiancé was a minor. While I have access to help pay off my fiancé's loans, he is understandably upset about the unauthorized withdrawals. He has yet to inform his father about his plans to come home for Christmas, and I'm uncertain about how this visit will unfold. Throughout his teenage years, my fiancé was expected to prioritize his family's needs over his own, often being criticized for not meeting their demands. Despite this, his family has never provided him any financial support. They have made him feel worthless and have even kicked him out multiple times, leaving him reliant on friends and I for support. Compounding the issue, I recently learned that my fiancé's younger brother, whom I helped get a job at my workplace, has been spreading gossip about me, suggesting that I'm not good enough for my fiancé and questioning my loyalty. It's frustrating to see how their negativity impacts my personal and professional life, especially when I don't engage with them. I understand that my fiancé's family represents a part of his life, particularly since he lost his mother at a young age. However, I struggle with the idea of staying in a relationship where he maintains ties with people who disrespect him and, by extension, disrespect me. Am I wrong to want him to evaluate his choices regarding his family? Is it unreasonable for me to ask him to prioritize our relationship over unhealthy family dynamics? Friends and family who know a bit about the situation understand my concerns, but they also believe he needs to make this decision independently. My mother, who understands these struggles, fully supports my viewpoint. I'm hoping to find some advice on how to communicate my feelings to my fiancé effectively and navigate this. Stories number 57. Am I the asshole for not considering my sister family? I, 28F, was talking to my grandma today. She asked me if I spoke to my sister Gina, 23F, and I said no. She asked why and I said because I really don't have a reason to. She was upset and said that sisters have to talk to one another because we're family. I told her that Gina isn't my family. She was shocked that I said that, and said that blood is family. She then said that her adopted daughter is her family. I said exactly, she's not blood and she's still your family, and just because someone is blood doesn't make them family, it just makes us blood related. My grandma then asked me if she was my family, and I said of course she is. She said that maybe it's people my age that don't consider blood family. Here's some context. I've only met Gina once in my life when I was 16 and she was 10-11. We both flew to NYC, where my grandma and grandpa lived, and spent a week with them. That was the first and last time we all spent time together. My father, Patrick, is my grandma's son. I haven't seen him in 24 years. I don't consider him family either, because I don't know him. Patrick has 5 children, all daughters, from 5 different women. I'm the oldest, and Gina is second. Patrick only raises the third daughter, who he weirdly named after my mom. I don't consider any of Patrick's other children as my family. I understand that by him having more children, that means I have siblings, but I don't know them. I also don't have a willingness to get to know them. On my mom's sides, I'm also the oldest or 4. I was raised with my 3 siblings, 23F, 22M, 10F. On my mom's side, I obviously consider them family. I was parentified a lot growing up. I believe this plays a part in me not feeling the need to get to know Patrick's other kids. I'm already the oldest/second mom on my mom's side. I don't need it on my father's side too. The third child he raises has contacted my grandma and aunt, Patrick's sister, before. I'm not sure how many times, but she asked for money. This brought on a conversation of my aunt asking me if I had any interest in getting to know her. I said I would mind talking to her once. But I don't have a huge interest. That was 4 years ago, and we never spoke. Child number 4, Sarah has messaged me before. Grandma gave her my phone number without my permission. On New Year's Eve wishing me a happy new year. I replied the same back. That was maybe 3 years ago. Sarah lives in a different country. Gina lives in a different state. I believe the other two live in the same state as me, as well as Patrick, but I'm not entirely sure. My mom thinks I'm being mean by not wanting a relationship with my other siblings, but I don't see why I have to force myself to have a relationship with people I don't know. I've spoke to Gina maybe 3 or 4 times in my life via text phone. And there's no connection. I've told my mom and grandma that it isn't up to me to get Patrick's kids all together, it's Patrick's responsibility. My grandma has said that she wants all of us to do a video chat, and I told her I was okay with it for her, but I still have no real interest. I guess my frustration mainly comes from my family making me feel like it's my responsibility to keep in contact with them and get to know them. Stories number 58. Am I the asshole for not letting my ex-roommate use my Amazon Prime account? I, 18F, and my roommate J, 18F, were roommates for part of the first semester in college. At first everything was great, we'd eat together, talk all night, and go shopping. It all changed however when we rushed for a sorority. I got into the one she wanted and she got into a different one from then on. She was a little more distant, but we were still good friends. It's worth to mention that on our shared TV, which I brought, I pay for Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and Peacock while her parents paid for Max and Netflix. I didn't have a problem with this because I had money saved from a young age to do what I wanted with in college. Later, I found out that she had to move out due to health reasons, and I know how that sounds, but it was actual health issues with certain foods that she needed to cook. I was a little upset because she told me a week before she moved out. But I understood and supported her the entire process. She was out with her friends at her sorority and left me to pack up her stuff, which I did because I wanted to be nice. Fast forward a few weeks and she asks me to log out of her Netflix and Max account, which I hadn't used since she moved out and frankly forgot she had, so I did as soon as possible. Later that same week, I look on my Amazon account and saw that a gift card I had on there was used up. When I looked into it, I saw that some movies were rented that I didn't rent. I texted and asked if she had rented movies and she said that she did. I asked her why she was on my Amazon account and she said that she didn't have one and wanted it. I told her that it wasn't fair that I had to get off the Netflix, but she can spend my money to watch a movie. She said it was different because Netflix was hers and Amazon was ours. I said no and told her that if she didn't get off of my account that I would find a way to kick her off myself. She refused, so I called my dad and we figured it out. She called me screaming that I ruined her movie night with her friends. And I basically said pay for your own. Then was I wrong? Stories number 59. Am I the asshole for refusing to buy a black coat for a funeral when my dark gray one is the one I always wear for these occasions? My granddad passed away a few weeks ago and this funeral is coming up within the next week. I had planned on wearing my standard funeral outfit, black pant, white shirt, etc. However, I had a phone call with my dad and he was asking what I was planning on wearing, so I told him and he said, "Are you planning on wearing that gray coat?" I said yeah, I plan to. His reaction was, "Well, everyone is wearing black, so you are going to look stupid with that on. You need to go out and buy a black one." I told him no, I won't be going out spending on a coat so close to Christmas, and also I am still a week away from being paid, so I am not exactly flush with cash right now. In the end I said okay, I will just be without a coat for the day. Again he said he did not like that and I should just go buy one. I can get a decent one for 40 to 50 pounds. Again told him I can't afford that. He then called me selfish and put the phone down on me. I have not heard from him since. Update. Thank you for all the responses. I am trying my best to reply to as many as I can. About 30 minutes after posting this, my dad randomly turned up at my house and broke down crying, saying he was sorry for the way he acted and I can wear whatever I want to. We had a brew together and a chat about everything and he's just left, so it seems the issue resolved itself. Stories number 60. Am I the asshole here for getting son out of detention? My 15-year-old son recently sustained a metacarpal fracture. It's his dominant hand, too, so it's been a tough adjustment. He stayed home for a few days to recover, but after some time, he decided he wanted to go back to school. Before he did, I spoke to the school to make sure accommodations were in place. They assured me that he could type out any written work since handwriting would obviously be an issue. Everything went smoothly with his teachers, except for his maths teacher. Apparently, during class, she was writing formulas on the board and expected everyone to copy them down. My son explained that he couldn't write comfortably with his injured hand and needed to use the classroom computer. Every classroom has one, so access wasn't an issue. She refused. Her reasoning: your fingers aren't in a cast, so there's no reason you can't use them. Now, it's true, He doesn't have a full plaster cast instead, his ring and pinky fingers are bandaged together, and he wears a Velcro wrist support but moving his hand causes pain and he needs to rest it as much as possible. He explained this to her. But she stood her ground. She claimed that letting him use a computer would be unfair to the other pupils who were writing by hand. Her next suggestion. He should write with his left hand, but his left-handed writing is illegible, so that wouldn't help either. He tried to explain why these weren't realistic options, but she kept refusing. He was going to need these notes when revising for his exams. At this point, a friend offered to let my son borrow his maths book after school so he could type up his notes. It seemed like a practical solution, but the teacher wasn't having it. She got angry at my son for just sitting there, even though he literally couldn't do the task the way she demanded. She ended up giving him a detention for not participating. I was livid when I found out. I called the school and explained the situation to the head teacher. To their credit, they sided with me and agreed the detention was unfair. The head teacher spoke to the maths teacher and had the detention cancelled. Later, I mentioned what happened to my sister, expecting her to agree that the situation was absurd. Instead, she said I was in the wrong. She thinks my son deserved the detention for not following the teacher's instructions, and that I was undermining authority by going straight to the head teacher. She even went as far as to say I'm setting him up for failure by shielding him from consequences. I don't think I did anything wrong, but now I'm second-guessing myself. Was I out of line for stepping in and getting the head teacher involved? Should I have made my son serve the detention? Stories number 61. Am I the asshole for not inviting my coworker to our group hangout? Am I the asshole for not inviting my coworker to our group hangout? Alright, so here's the deal. My coworkers and I, there are like 6 of us, have this thing where we go out for drinks every Friday after work. It's nothing fancy, just a casual way to unwind and vent about the week. Everyone's cool with it, except for this one dude. Let's call him Brad. Brad's a lot. He's that guy who hijacks conversations and makes everything about himself. Like, you'll be talking about your weekend plans, and suddenly he's telling a 20-minute story about his cat's bowel movements or something. Plus, he's got this weird habit of jokingly insulting people, but it's not funny, it's just awkward. Anyway, last week, someone suggested keeping it low-key, so we decided not to invite Brad. We didn't make a big deal out of it, just kinda didn't mention it, of course, because the universe has a sense of humor. Brad found out, someone posted a group pic on Insta, and now he's giving me the cold shoulder at work. He hasn't said anything directly, but the vibe is off. Some of my coworkers think I was wrong to leave him out, but others are like, yeah, it was a necessary evil. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but honestly, it was one of the best Fridays we've had in a while. So, am I the asshole? Should I have sucked it up and invited him, or was it fair to have a Brad-free night for once? Stories number 62. Am I the asshole for not wanting to wake up early to care for the cat my partner adopted without my consent? My partner, 25M, and I, 27F, have been together for over 2 years and lived together for 1. We've talked about getting a pet, and I've always made it clear that I didn't want a cat due to my allergies and simply not liking them as pets. I don't hate cats, they just aren't for me. Despite this, my partner kept pushing the idea, saying I'd become a cat person if we got one. I told him I wouldn't. We eventually agreed that we would try fostering a cat, with the understanding that the animal's care would be his responsibility and it would only be a temporary trial. I thought I could compromise for a short time if it would make him happy. The next day, he came home with a cat that he had adopted, not a foster. Like we discussed, he'd also spent over $500 on the cat and its setup, despite our finances being tight. When I confronted him, he said he couldn't leave the cat at the shelter and didn't want to foster because he might get too attached. I told him this should have been discussed with me first. The cat has anxiety and doesn't tolerate noise, so now I'm constantly asked to keep everything quiet, no loud talking, TV, or music while working out. Our house isn't exactly quiet. The cat also doesn't do well with kids, but we often have family and friends over, many with young kids. My partner works full-time and is away once a week, while I work from home, so I'm stuck with the cat most of the time. On top of that, he's asking me to wake up 2 hours earlier than usual to feed the cat while he's away to stick to the cat's routine. I have sleep issues, and he knows this, so it's a big ask. What about my routine? I'm frustrated because he made a major decision without consulting me, and now it's impacting my day-to-day life. He's also pressuring me to bond with the cat. But it's hard when I didn't have a say in this at all. I don't want to take it out on the cat. It's not its fault, but it's hard to feel affectionate toward it given how my partner handled this. I tried to compromise, but he disregarded my feelings and did what he wanted without any consideration for me. I could be overreacting, But I feel disrespected and trapped in a situation I didn't choose. If he had stuck to what we agreed and brought home a foster cat, I might have even been open to adoption later if I bonded with it, but I had no choice in the matter. So, am I the asshole for not wanting to alter my life for a pet I explicitly said I didn't want? Stories number 63. Am I the asshole for blocking my best friend after she freaked out over a selfie I sent her boyfriend? Mia and I have been best friends forever, so when her boyfriend, Jake, messaged me, I didn't think anything of it. He said he was working on a birthday project for her and asked me to send a selfie for it. I thought it was a little random, but it seemed harmless, so I just sent him the picture. The next day, Mia called me, absolutely losing it. Why would you send Jake a selfie of yourself? She yelled. I was so confused and told her it was for her birthday, but she didn't care. She said it was inappropriate and started accusing me of going behind her back and crossing boundaries. I tried explaining over and over, but she just kept yelling and wouldn't listen to a word I said. By the end of the day, ID had enough. I blocked her because I couldn't handle the constant texts accusing me of things I didn't even do. Now I feel guilty, like maybe I made things worse, but at the same time, I don't think I deserve to be treated like that. So, am I the asshole?